Hello, this is 13 Heathen speaking, and I'm sorry, what's that, honey? I'm not allowed in a room full of women? Hang on.
Hello.
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 Hi.
So we have everyone here?
Yep, I think so. I'm back.
Yay.
I had to push
yes.
Freddie off the bed and accidentally disconnected myself.
Oops.
I know, it's all Freddie's fault. Everything's Freddie's fault.
Of course it is.
He'll back. He'll be back. He's a cat. He'll be back.
Of course.
Hi,
Not
Red.
that I would. Hi. Not that I would know anything about cats because I've never lived with them. But.
No.
Oh, what? How can that be? How can that be?
Well, you're allergic, aren't you, Red?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I've got 3. My husband's allergic to them, but I've got 3.
I'm allergic to cats. So.
Yeah, me too.
So we have Puppy.
I have 5 cats, so.
I'm allergic to puppies too.
Oh, that's sad.
I'm allergic to hairy things. I should say furry things, actually, because I can get that have hair that I'm not.
Well, I was just going to add, we've noticed that your husband is bald.
Indeed. Is that why I chose him? I'm allergic to the other type.
Oh, did your well, I assume your husband moved with you, but did you lose your tenant, or did he move with you too?
Oh, we still got the house in the other county at the moment.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, it needs. He's still got to fix up his Mustang, which is in the garage back there, and we've got a few bits to fix around before we actually put the house on the market. So we're just renting the small house where I am now.
Yeah.
But,
without the bookshelf.
There is a bookshelf, but it's right in the other corner.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Indeed. How are you, Exiled?
I'm good. I just woke up, so.
Oh.
Morning.
Morning. Good afternoon.
I just brought the horses in, and it's a sea of mud again out there.
Yeah.
And one of them escaped today as well.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, headed for the main road. Oh. Sorry?
How many do you have?
I've got 2.
2.
2.
Oh, nice.
Yes. 2 too many, according to my husband. He's looking up recipes.
Oh, no. Excellent.
He's scared of horses, and he doesn't like them, and he can't stand the smell of them.
Oh dear.
And because I've done my back, he's been having to do the horses for a fortnight.
Oh, no.
And he is not a happy bunny. Oh, he's not a happy bunny at all.
Oh.
To be honest, I am so grateful. I mean, it must be love for him to do that. It really must.
Yeah.
Because he really is scared of them. I mean, he's even been helping me put their pajamas on at night.
Aww.
Oh.
I know.
Are they female horses?
No, they're one female and
because when you put
one
your
male.
pajamas on, then there'd be nightmares, wouldn't they?
She is a nightmare. She escaped today and headed off down into the neighbour's garden, then for the main road, then towards the railway line, then back up into my front garden, where she proceeded to do about 5 western stops on the lawn.
Oh, nice.
And since the ground's nice and soft and wet at the moment, my lawn is wrecked.
Oh dear.
Oh
I couldn't
no.
catch her. It was my husband that caught her. I couldn't catch her.
Does she then just like stand? She just like figure out where she's going and then just stop? Is that what happens?
Oh no, what she was after was grass. Because she's a stomach on legs. And I mean, she knew she was in trouble with me. She knew she was. I was lobbing rocks at her. So it was my husband. I mean, seriously, I was trying to get her to about turn, and I couldn't get in front of her to drive her back.
Right.
So I was lobbing rocks to land in front of her in the hope it would drive her back.
Seriously.
Because I was in a panic. You know, I mean, if she'd gone on the main road, I mean, if a car had hit her, it would have knocked her onto the railway line, and it would have derailed the Edinburgh to Glasgow train. So I was in a bit of a panic.
Aye, understandable.
Bloody horses.
I used to take care of horses on the racetrack and, on the backside of the racetrack. And I had this one that would just run away and just stop, wherever he felt like it, not too far away. The whole point was to run away. He didn't like me.
No, and she was actually kicking out at me if I got close enough to her. She was turning on her backside and trying to double barrel me. Oof. And it was not so much trying to get me, but she knew she was in big trouble. So she was all defensive.
Oh.
She just didn't want to be got.
Yes. I mean, I have been known to chase her up and down a field throwing snowballs at her when she's been naughty. I've also been known to get dragged across my stomach on the end of a lunge line when it's her.
Oh, what fun.
That doesn't sound comfortable.
No.
But I rode her today with my sore back, and we did great until she decided to jump a puddle. And she cleared it by about 3.5 feet, which didn't help my back much, and I don't jump. No. I really don't jump. It was painful.
That would
but
be.
Yes, horses. So my husband must love me.
I rode a horse for the first time a couple months ago. Some of my cousins rent a house that has a couple acres of land attached to it, and a horse just showed up in their pasture one day, and they cannot find the owner.
Oh.
So they've been taking care of her.
Yeah, it's a big job taking care of a horse.
Well, they
Getting
grew
their
up
teeth
around
done.
that sort of thing, so.
Because it's getting their teeth done, getting their feet done, vaccinations, they're like a cash machine in reverse.
Yeah, my sister-in-law has a horse that she. But I'm not. I like them. I think they're beautiful, but they're just too big for animals should be like no higher than my kneecaps.
I used to look after a horse, and I was no higher than its kneecaps. It was 18 hands too. I used to ride her. She was brilliant.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm scared of horses, but I am not comfortable.
I'm terrified of them.
I think,
really, I used to be, I wouldn't even go in a stable with a horse, which was a problem when you own them.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've always been scared of it. I didn't even learn to ride till I was 27.
I'm scared of cows.
Yeah, they're evil beasts.
They are, and they're not very smart.
Yeah. They give me the screaming abdabs. If you're riding a horse along and you come across a field of cows, you can guarantee the entire herd will gallop over to see what's happening.
Aww.
And then they'll follow you.
Yeah, and your horse goes,
yeah,
and you get scraped off the road by a passing car. It's just thunder right up to the hedge line to see what's going on.
From what I've heard, cows aren't as docile as they used to be.
No, and also when they've got calves with them, they're dangerous.
I think a lot of animals are dangerous if you approach them when they've got their young.
Yeah, if you've got a dog with you, the cows will attack, and you've got to let your dog off the leash because your dog can run away. And if you keep your dog beside you, the cows will end up killing you.
Huh.
So you've got to let your dog off the leash for your own safety, and they'll follow the dog and leave you alone.
I would happily sacrifice a dog for my life.
There's been quite a few people have been killed because they were walking a dog near cows with young.
Wow.
I've never seen cows act like that.
I have.
My only real experience with cows was, in order to feed them, you walked out into the pasture and you yelled "goat," and the goat would come running, and the cows would follow the goat, and then you had to prod them to keep the bulls back from, stealing the bucket from your hands, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, at calving time, if you need to go in to help one of them, and there are other cows with young there, or there are other cows very heavily pregnant that wish they already had a youngster, it can be horrendous. You know, especially when you've got a cow with 2 legs sticking out the back end and you're trying to get the calving ropes on. And all the other cows are starting to get really quite aggressive with you, and you're thinking, what do I do? If I run out, the cow and calf will die. If I stay here, I might die.
Wow.
You know, they can be really, really awkward.
So I don't know if there's any truth in it, but they reckon it's all to do with the amount of hormones and crap that ends up in the water they drink, don't they? That's why they're not as docile as they used to be.
No, I think they've just got a bit cleverer.
It could be.
They've learned how to pass the information from generation to generation. And that's it. So these wee calves are grown up all obstreperous. Bit like human children, I think. Oh, see, 12-year-olds today are not like the 12-year-olds when I was 12.
True, yeah, I know what you mean.
I sound so old. Oh,
I was just thinking, let's not go down this road. Just as I said, I know what you mean, I'm like, let's not go down this road.
It's along the same lines of saying, oh, do you know, when I was your age, the music was so much better. It's just a noise now.
And I'm sure your parents thought the same thing.
And the cows,
Lifting septic tank in Bottom River. Kids today, they don't.
And the worst of it is, I mean, I think I was listening to Deep Purple at the time, at about 100 decibels, and saying to my son, "Your music's rubbish." But then again, I mean, he was in this Gangnam Style. Oh God.
Oh boy.
I have to agree with that one. I think I'm beginning to be able to relate to this. Music was so much better when I was young. Like, I'm just on the cusp of that age where there's still a few new songs that I really enjoy, but for the most part, I'm like, turn it off.
Yeah.
And
the other thing is, you say it all sounds the same to me. That's another
I
one.
grew up in the 80s and 90s. We had our fair share of bad.
Yeah, there was some great stuff, but yeah, there was some crap as well.
Yeah.
Well, I get interested in music in the 70s.
But half the crap
when I
you
was
loved
about
at the time.
My son is horrified because I still listen to a lot of glam rock.
Nice.
Nothing wrong with
Like
glam rock.
Sweet and Slade and the Glitter Band. You know, and I will actually even listen to Gary Glitter.
T-Rex.
Oh, T-Rex. Oh, yes. Enough to boogie. Absolutely fantastic. But that's what I listen to, and on the Bay City Rollers. Do you remember them with their?
No, I don't
turnips?
remember them. I'm 40.
Yeah, what did they do?
Yes,
what was
I
their
remember that.
popular song? What was that one, Fiona?
Was they-
Roller coaster, gotta make the most. Roller coaster, gotta make them. Was that Bay City Rollers?
I don't know. There was Summer Love Sensation, Shang-a-Lang,
Oh, Shangri-La.
All of Me Loves All of You, Bye Bye Baby.
Bye bye, baby. Ugh. Sorry.
There's some really, really good ones. I mean, they were sort of catchy. Then I was in love with them. And David Cassidy.
So the first song I actually ever clearly, distinctly remember hearing on the radio, the first two songs actually, distinctly hearing on the radio, was Where's Your Mama Gone? Where's Your Mama Gone? And I can't remember how it goes now. Sugar, sugar, honey, you are my candy. And those,
Yeah.
those are the first two songs I have a clear memory of actually hearing on the radio. Or
The
Anyway.
two I remember are Edelweiss and
Oh, wow.
Wonderful World. Me and my dad would sing them in his van. That's the two that I remember. And also I loved the Alexander Brothers.
doesn't ring a bell, but
It shouldn't. If it did, I'd be really worried about you.
Remember the Monkees? Do you remember? That was the first record.
Hey, we're the monkeys.
Hmm
That was the first record I had. I had a stack of them.
Was it? Oh boy.
Oh,
Oh,
you
I think-
children.
First one I bought was oh god.
I
Solid Gold Easy Action.
I can't get no satisfaction.
Yeah, that's it. That's the first one I ever bought.
I am deeply embarrassed to say, but not embarrassed enough not to say it. The first single I ever bought was Paul McCartney's Merle of Kintyre. Oh, God.
Kintyre, always strolling in from the sea. But he's
Sorry, that's a funeral song, right?
Oh, sorry?
It's a funeral song, right?
That was always the slow dance at the end
Well,
of
I
the
come from
disco.
a different background. The first sing boys. I was totally into surfing. Southern California girl.
Ah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think what the other really stupid things I like. Does anybody remember Paper Lace? Billy, Don't Be a Hero.
I'd like
Oh yeah,
to
I
say
do.
no, but yeah. I think I had an album of this.
No, my first album was Rolf Harris.
Oh no!
My second one was Val Dinnigan, the Irish singer. But my
I think
first
one of my-
proper one was the Partridge Family.
I think one of my partner's first albums was The Goodies.
Oh God, the Goody.
Yes.
So it had the Funky Gibbon on it. Oh, I love the
Well,
Funky
we have
Gibbon.
no taste when we're children. But
Oh,
Anyone who's not British is probably not getting the reference.
no.
Well,
I
if
love
we
the
keep up this line of conversation, then I'm just going to embarrass myself. So, let's go ahead and we're about 15 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get started on some of the women's topics that have been of issue lately, if that is okay with everyone.
yeah,
Okay. Well, let's start with what's been big. Well, relatively big, in at least online. The movement to ban Bossy.
oh
Mm-hmm.
God.
Absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Like, just so
I agree.
laughably ridiculous. It's
To ban-
oh
Now-
my gosh.
What are we banning?
Banning Bossy.
What's
The word bossy.
Yes.
What?
The
Apparently,
idea-
this is why women can't get ahead in life. Because
The
we
idea
get called
behind it-
bossy.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Is that women are called bossy, and it's bad, it's negative, we should get away from that. But of course, the other side is, why is it bad? Why is it so bad for a woman to be bossy?
And
Mhm.
if
Well,
you're
it's-
Talking about girls, though, they don't want the girls in elementary school, right? Was it for every? It wasn't for all women. It was just for the girls in the school. Is that what? Am I getting that right?
I think originally yes, but I think it's come to be its own thing now, and it's let's ban bossy everywhere, and I think that's where the misunderstanding comes from. Yeah, it's a slur. It's one of the mildest ones out there now. When you think of all the other stuff kids are calling each other.
Oh, some of the things that
yeah.
the certain 13-year-old I know has been called at school is just unbelievable.
All right, I've just done a quick Google search and I've come up with a site that says ban bossy.
Yeah.
When a little boy asserts himself, he's called a leader. Yet when a girl does it, the same, she risks being branded bossy. Words like bossy send a message: don't raise your hand or speak up. By middle school, girls are less interested in leading than boys, a trend that continues into adulthood. Together, we can encourage girls to lead.
And
Right.
I agree with sentiment, and this actually
Yeah.
is nothing new. Way back in the 1970s, back in the Dark Ages, there was a movement to stop using the word aggressive and instead using the word assertive because of the implications of aggressive women. And yes, words are used differently for men than women, and I fully agree with that. However, to come up with a leading, statement of ban bossy really seems to belittle the whole purpose. It just looks silly.
It's like, okay, just come up with a new word. Not change your mindset, just stop saying that.
Yeah, Precisely.
But I think one of the problems is that quite often they are going to go back to the Bible to find justification for this sort of thing. Imply that women.
I don't even think it's religious oriented. They're like, I think this is like the extreme left, or maybe mothers who just don't have enough time, but to come up with ridiculous campaigns to spread on social media. To be honest.
I think it may have started with Beyonce, or at least grew to this giant thing because of Beyonce's involvement in the Ban Bossy campaign.
Yeah. Thing is, what I will say is I've just put a link into the chat that I suggest you have a look at.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And this, it's an extreme example. But this is justified using biblical text.
The submissive wife type of.
It's not just that.
It's even worse than that. Yeah.
It's worse than that. It's how you administer the strokes. How you administer the
Christian domestic
strokes.
discipline?
Yes. And it actually advises husbands to put a towel over their leg, because if they beat their wife's bum hard enough, then in pain she should wet herself.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Right, have a look at that site. I came across it by accident. Somebody linked to it. Now that's an extreme example of the women shouldn't speak in church. That's taking it so much further.
This is horrifying.
I'm going to stick that link to the
is.
YouTube comments so
That is
folks
absolutely
watching can see
horrifying.
it.
I waded through this site over a period of a few days, and I couldn't believe what I was reading.
Wow.
Because women are not supposed to be assertive at all.
No. It's like, what century are we living in?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been spending, as some people know, months in St. Augustine for a project I'm working on. And that was 1,500 years ago. And he doesn't talk that way about women. Where are they getting this? And yeah, there was recently a video from that pastor from that extreme church, and I admit it's an extreme church. This is the guy who was praying every night that Obama would be dead. But he came out with this video of how women should never speak in church, no matter what. Even if you have a question or anything, don't say anything.
Is it the even just say amen guy?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
That amen is not like amen after a prayer. That's people shouting amen.
Right.
You guys picked that up, right?
Right, yes.
Amen, yeah.
I saw a headline. I didn't read the article.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure about the connotation, but
apparently women are to keep their lips zipped, period.
Yeah. But can someone read the passage on, I can't keep that window open and this window open at the same time. Can someone read the passage on eroticism there, please?
In this link?
Yeah, in that link.
Hang on a minute.
Eroticism.
Hang on a minute, I'll just do a search.
I've got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay, go for it. Oh,
yeah, I found it. It's under eroticism is listed under what topics do we not discuss. And it says, whilst we recognize by its very nature this can be an erotic subject, we will keep this website as clean and wholesome as possible. However, we will not seek to deny the erotic nature of some CDD marriages, as we believe it is a natural consequence of following God's plan. After all, He created eroticism and sexuality to be enjoyed within the healthy, safe, and exclusive boundaries of marriage.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that the people that are engaging in this are typically doing it consensually.
Yeah, but I think to actually be dragging up biblical justification.
Yeah, there are similar like contracts made within the BDSM community, like frequently. It's a master-slave situation, and it's it's consensual, and sometimes actual physical contracts are drawn up for relationships like this. But to my knowledge, there's very rarely a biblical context to it. One of the partners, the man or the woman, or one of the women or one of the men is in charge. And there are very many rules.
This is a very gender-orientated dominant, submissive thing, though, isn't it? It's very specifically, man is dominant, woman is submissive.
Exactly.
So it's
very different from what you find, or to a degree at least, different from what you find consensually done in within the BDSM community. 'Cause within the BDSM community, a big part of that contract, when there is a dom-sub relationship being developed, a big part of that is what is out of bounds, what cannot be done to the submissive.
Right.
Like a huge part of that is the list of this is not allowed, and here's what will be said in the event that things go too far.
Now, what bothers me about this is it entirely consensual, and is it a situation where the Bible is being used to, excuse the phrase, oppress women? Many years ago, back in the 1970s, excuse me for going back time again, there were no battered women's shelters back then. They didn't exist. I think a lot of people today don't realize how far we've come in so many ways. Well, I was involved with the Feminist Women's Health Center, and I took women into my home who were escaping battered marriages. I was kind of talked into this because I had a place that they could come and stay. I had women, and sometimes women and children, stay with me. And I admit that I had a lot of biases against battered women until I met them. I could not understand why they just didn't get up and leave, or why they didn't contact their family, because, I mean, if somebody tried to hit me, I'd have called my cousins, and that person would have been dead, or wanting to be dead.
Yeah.
But then I got to meet them, and I realized that this didn't happen overnight, and that there was a pattern. Of course, since then it's been researched quite a bit. The women tended to be from families or backgrounds that were used to be submissive, or who didn't really have a strong parental background. And so some guy comes along, and he's charming, and he takes care of everything for you, and he wants to take care of you, and everything he does, it's for you. Yeah, I know I don't want you to drive because it's scary out there. You just let me know what you need, and I'll get it for you. Before long, they found themselves trapped in their homes and he'd cut off all their friends and even cut off their family, sometimes moving to get away from their family. So they would have no means of support except him. That was the point. And after a while, he'd start with the violence, hitting them. Oh, you made me angry. It's your fault. And she'd be, oh, I'm so sorry, and then find herself walking on eggshells not to make him angry. And they find themselves trapped in this situation. When I see something like this, when I see some of the way that the extreme Christian right, I mean the extreme, are looking at women and saying, you must be subservient, I can't help but remember these battered women that I thought of, that I knew about, who started off in this, yes, you will take care of me, you are the master of the household, I will let you do everything, and then soon found themselves trapped in a situation that they couldn't get out of. I'm not saying that these situations are like that. I'm quite sure that a lot of women, want this kind of relationship. You know what? Fine. Whatever situation you want. If you want to be in this kind of marriage, fine. If you want to be in a BDSM relationship, fine. My only objection would be if these good Christians would then criticize a BDSM relationship.
Well, from what my understanding, which isn't that great, I'll admit, a lot of it like I say, they are quite often charming. I say men, there are abusive women as well, for anyone who's watching, and but they're quite often the charm. But the other thing they tend to do is they gradually destroy the person's self-esteem with little comments. Just little comments like, "Oh, are you wearing that?" What I mean? And they gradually just wear away a person's self-esteem. So by the time they're being battered, this person has no self-esteem and actually thinks they are not worthy of anything other than this abusive relationship. And
Yeah, I agree. And in the
Yeah.
women that I knew, the one thing that caused them to leave was when he started hitting the kids.
Sure, yeah.
Mhm.
That was the thing that made the break for them. You know, as long as he was hitting on her, and she didn't even think about whether or not his beating her affected the kids. But as long
Mm.
as he was hitting on her, she was an adult, she felt she could take it. She also felt responsible because he'd spent years telling her she was responsible for his actions.
Mhm.
But when they started hitting the kids, that was the break. And
Mhm.
that's when they took off. But then there are some women
You know,
who stayed even with the kids being hit because they were too under his thrall, so to speak, at that point. And yes, you're right, Dee. There are men in the same position, but
Mhm.
it tends to be more women.
And there are
Yeah.
also women who stay when it's only the kids being hit and not the woman.
Yes, yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's all,
Yeah, sometimes it's a transference. He starts hitting her and then starts hitting the kids, and
Mhm.
she's like, "Well, he's not hitting me anymore, and they're bad." He says they're bad. They're bad.
yeah.
I think a part of
it-
this is a part of the problem are the women too, though, because some women they don't have healthy expectations of relationship. You know, they find it to be more romantic or more beautiful of an idea that, well, someday he'll stop. He'll see how much he's hurting me. He'll see how much he loves me, and then he'll stop, and then we'll finally be happy. They fixate too much on the future that there's no reason to believe will ever come to pass. They kind of get wrapped up in their own delusion too.
I think that can happen, yeah, without a doubt. It's a very complex
It
situation
is.
because you've got so many different dynamics going on within an abusive relationship. The dynamics that it's like you say. I mean, I have actually met one or two women who like moan constantly about their partners, and I'm like, well, why don't you leave and find yourself a nice bloke? And I just thought, okay, whatever, just stop complaining about him to me then. But you know, I think they're in the. I assume they're in the minority, and I assume Jade, sorry, is referring to very serious situations where it is women who have had low self-esteem and had what little esteem they have had sort of beaten out of them quite literally. But yeah, it's
But the question now, Jade, you were talking about, going back to the 70s and they didn't have places to go. They do now, but how much of it has really changed?
Yeah, that's a good point. Even though there are places for women to go and it's advertised and everything, how can you get women to get out of these relationships? And basically, you need to teach children. And this actually comes into sex education, which is horrific in this country. Sex education is more than sex; it's relationships, and you have to teach young women, as girls, not only not to be abused, but not to abuse. And you have to do the same thing with boys. Because there are boys who will allow themselves to be beaten up by their girlfriends because they think you shouldn't hit a girl. So they won't retaliate, and they'll just take it.
As well. And if they ever did retaliate, they'd be the one that probably end up.
Yes.
Because we still have that view.
Yeah.
Of women must be protected. Women are just so much different from men. And I think that's really the underlying problem.
Yeah, and we're adults. We can take care of ourselves. Thank you very much. I mean, certainly there are women who need help with things. There are men who need help with things. There are people who need help with things. It doesn't mean it's just a one-sided deal. Women do not need to be protected like we're gentle flowers, and will not need to be put on pedestals, which to me is a way of avoiding what problems they really have. We'll stick you on a pedestal and forget about you.
No, we need to be raised to and taught to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
I'll probably have a different take on this because I've been following a lot of the men's rights movement conversations for a long time.
They're scary. Some of them.
Although they're scary, there are some people who are actually rational, and there are some things coming to light. And I know Jade knows this, that what we're finding about domestic abuse is that the number of the statistics on women who are abusive in the relationships, intimate partner relationships, is larger than we have been taught to think. And there might even be some evidence that this has been the case all along. So I don't know if you've heard any of these discussions or looked over any of this research, but it's you know, women are not likely to get seriously wounded in these violent relationships, but they are participants in it.
Well, sometimes it's a mutual combat situation. Literally, the relationship is a mutual combat situation. But you're right. Just because we don't have records of things don't mean that they don't exist. It just means that people didn't keep records for reasons. In the 50s, if a man was being abused by his wife, he wouldn't say a word.
No, he'd be deeply
ashamed. And if a woman was being abused by her husband, she would rarely say a word. The only way it would come to light if he beat the crap out of her and she ended up half dead.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, women have always abused men. I'd be willing to bet you could go back to St. Augustine's time and find some woman who beat the crap out of her husband every day.
Well, the other thing is not just physical abuse. I mean, the mental abuse, which in court is very difficult to prove. At least with physical abuse, you can say, look at this bruise, look at this cut, look at this boot mark. Try proving mental abuse. I can't.
And women can be very cutting. Be around a bunch of junior high school girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard women belittle their husbands in public, and the guy just takes it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, there's more subtle things that they can do too. You know, like a woman could be lying in bed, so I'm hot, and her husband doesn't get up to turn the fan on, so she's angry with him for 3 days. Doesn't tell him why.
Yeah.
He ignores him, gives him the cold shoulder. I mean, that's enough to drive a man crazy. But women think that's perfectly acceptable behavior because the man should be catering to me. The man should know what I want, should know what I think. It goes back to those unrealistic expectations again.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
As a feminist for 40 years, I'd like to say get up and turn your own goddamn fan on.
Indeed. It's.
Or if you really don't want to move, at least have the decency to ask him.
Yeah,
it's
He probably would do it.
Hey,
baby, would you please grab that fan for me?
Yeah, if there's any women out there that Shane is describing, let me just say to you now, they are not mind readers.
No, they're not.
You know, and we cannot expect them to be. You know, no more than we are, indeed. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, and you will hear that complaint from both sides. Why didn't he or she know what I wanted? Well, you gotta tell them. And trust me, it works in same-sex relationships too, because people are different individuals. You know,
communication.
Well, we say it so often to toddlers when they're crying and we don't know what's wrong. We tell them, use your words. Why don't we say this to adults?
You know, that's interesting.
Say that to adults.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, Rose, because I remember when I was about 2 or 3 years old. I remember some stuff as far back as when I was 2. And something happened. There were a bunch of friends at my mom's house, and they started saying something about, Dorothy had an accident. That was my mom, Dorothy. And I started crying profusely. And I just was almost hysterical, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. Well, at that age, the thing is, I remember not being able to put things together in my head properly. To me, the word accident had something to do with people across the street, people down the street, and somebody was never seen again. As it so happened, she was coming home in the rain and ran up on the curb. And they were joking about it because it was just, one of those, you can't drive, huh? Kind of things. But me being a little kid, I didn't really understand what the word accident meant. I didn't understand the adults were laughing, and I just went hysterical. And next thing you know, my mom showed up. She had gone to the store for something, or that's what the whole thing was about. My mom showed up. She started hugging me, and I just kept crying and crying and crying because I couldn't stop. I knew my mom was okay, but I couldn't stop. And I remember everybody's going, "What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her?" And I remember being unable to form the words to explain it. And yeah, you're right.
My parents, it was always, "I can't understand you when you're crying." Or I can't understand you when you're whining. When I was upset and trying to speak and explain what was wrong.
Yeah. You can't when you're that little. You can't put the words together. You can't even put the thoughts together properly. I can remember I can remember the thoughts in my head, and they didn't quite go together right, and I knew I couldn't explain what was wrong, and that happens. Yeah, you know, people, but even as adults, people will start crying for strange reasons, and somebody goes, "What's wrong?" I can't, you know, and it's like, okay, you want me to hug you or go away?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
just we're still not perfect at talking to each other, and we never will be. We just have to try, you know.
No, my
try to
fiance
listen.
and I, we have an understanding that if I start crying hysterically, he waits. If I want a hug, I will hug him. If I need to be alone, I will go away. And once I can form the words to explain what's going on in my probably hormonal brain, I will explain. and half the time the words coming out of my mouth are, "It's irrational, just leave me alone."
Yeah.
Yeah, I will start laughing at really ridiculous things. Somebody says, "What are you laughing?" And I'm like, "Well, do you have 30 minutes?" Because what will happen is something that happened a week ago was something that happened yesterday, was something that happened when I was a little kid, was something I just read, all suddenly tied together in something that was hysterical. Now, how do I explain this to someone?
Yeah.
You know, if you want me to, I'll be glad to, but you're going to be here a while. And you still won't get the joke.
I am going to pause this right now for a brief announcement. Hold on
Okay.
one moment.
In addition to this conversation, this weekend is also the Madness and Mayhem charity event. Just going to plug this twice over the course of the show. The links are in the description. This is a charity raising funds for the AIDS vaccine initiative. So those of you who are watching that may be interested or able to contribute to this, check the links below. Thank you very much. Now back to Red.
Sorry, that was the music for the end of the intermission.
That's
Yes,
what we
yes.
do every year in March. We have this charity. Everybody shows up. I don't know. I know there's some of you who are new around here, and we show up and donate. It's a really good thing that the atheist community puts on every year.
Yeah, I wanted to maybe slightly steer this into the direction of when women talk about faith and when women talk about scripture and the reaction that gets. Now, I think Shanna's a theist. I know I am.
Be right back. I'm not sure she's back yet.
Right.
But if I recall correctly, I think she's a deist.
Right. But it's the idea that women shouldn't even participate in these discussions, which I'm finding difficult at the moment. I've had a few run-ins recently where I've been told that. And I just wondered what your take is on it.
Well, I can tell you what mine is. You know, growing up, and I am officially undisclosed. I don't say whether I'm a theist or atheist or whatever. However, I still say what I believe, what I think, you know, about things, and it's very clear to everyone who's ever listened that I'm very thankful for and honor my Catholic upbringing and education. Now, one of the interesting things about everything that's said about women is that they're not looking at the Bible very carefully. And I would love to talk to the New Covenant group about this. If you look at the Bible, and if you look at the New Testament, and sometimes, you know, let's be real, people will say the Bible, and they're not distinguishing between, like, the New Testament and the Old Testament. I'm talking about the New Testament. Jesus' two greatest disciples, first and greatest, and in the Bible, he makes it clear that they are his first and greatest, were his mother, Mary, and Mary Magdalene, who, by the way, was not the prostitute. Mary Magdalene was a different person. Mary was a common name, and that kind of gets conflated. And in some ways, it was deliberately done so in the past to diminish the role of women. That does exist. And when the switch came to the Reformation, the role of women went down in the church, in the Protestant churches, and that was more of a political thing. It's not against anything Protestant. Jesus' two greatest disciples were Mary and Mary Magdalene, and also by tradition, the wife of Joseph of Arimathea, who I think was also called Mary. I'm not sure. But that's tradition. That's not actually in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read it, he put them above the apostles. And I remember studying this in school, and we kind of joked about this. We said, well, in that case, if you look at it this way, then, okay, men should be priests, but the hierarchy, the bishops and the archbishops, should all be women. If the church is going to play it that way, all the archbishops and bishops should be women, because women are above the apostles. So this is a very creative reading that they're using of the Bible. This is my opinion.
See, I find that it's
radical.
They drag it to other areas, though. Where I'm concerned, because of the overlap between the science that I do and religion, I'm not even supposed to speak on the science because I'm female.
Says who?
Well, yeah, I've been getting this from a certain fruity friend of ours that he has no problem with sexual equality in these discussions. After all, he has spoken to me as long as I know my place.
Who's that? The Bible thumping wingnut?
No. It's Richard Raspberry.
Oh. Okay.
Fruity. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And also I got
Well, there are other
the same
members.
from G-Man.
Yeah.
A woman shouldn't be talking about theological matters, but that because of the overlap with the biological sciences, it means I shouldn't even be speaking on science, which is my specialism. And would that attitude leave a space within society for women at all to have any meaningful contribution?
It doesn't. That's just absurd.
They're just being ridiculous because this is a public forum, YouTube. You know, and they think that they can enforce their rules maybe on their own channels. But then I would boycott that channel. I wouldn't even give it the time of day.
I hope I don't mess this up. One of my favourite quotes is, men and women are different sides of the same coin. To deface one side is to devalue both.
And guess what? St. Augustine would agree with you.
Yeah.
So
how many of us have experienced this recently? I'm not talking about going back decades, but how many have come across this attitude recently within a certain fundamentalist people?
Yeah, I have. There's another person who yelled at a particular other theist online, I won't say, and told him to tell his wife to shut up because women shouldn't be speaking.
I know who that was, yes.
Yes, and that was, I'll put it in the chat. I just don't want to get it,
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh, there's a question. So there's a question in the thingy here. It says, where do the quotes that are trying to say are biblical come from? Sorry, I misread that. Where do these quotes they are trying to say are biblical come from? Yeah, I think it's because some people want to be dominant over others.
Yeah.
Deliberate.
Where they're getting it is Paul. And you have to be careful with reading Paul.
Yeah, letters to Paul.
See, because it's not in the Gospels. It's in Paul. And the thing is, Paul wrote these different letters to different churches. And he was addressing specific problems in those churches. It doesn't necessarily mean he was speaking to everyone. For instance, Romans is often misunderstood because Paul was speaking to the Romans, to things that were happening there. And when he's talking about the women, at that time, a lot of women ran churches in various different churches. And in some churches, they weren't letting the men speak. So Paul's admonition to women was not to women to not speak at all, but to please let the men talk. That's basically what it's about. But the fundamentalists just love Paul. And you will notice a group of them would always, attack poor Gary. phony Beatlemaniacs, when he'd speak to them. And I would write down and what they would do is they'd throw a whole bunch of Bible verses at them. It was a Gish Gallop version of the Bible. They'd quote this, they quote this, they quote this, and I would write down all their quotes. And I found it very interesting when I would do this, that there'd be a whole bunch of quotes from the Old Testament, and then there'd be some from Revelations, and you can discard both of those. Revelations is not prophecy at all. It even says so. How come fundamentalists who take the Bible literally, quote unquote, go to Revelations, and the first thing it says is this is a letter to the 7 churches who existed at that time, but then they decide it's prophecy for all eternity? I don't get that. So you can take out Revelations, and then when you look at what's left, you got like one quote from the Gospels and a whole bunch of Paul. Yeah. And as Gary said over and over again to them, I take Jesus' word over Paul. But they love Paul because Paul, especially if you interpret it the way you want, tells them the things they want. But they're taking Paul out of context of his times, out of context of what he was meaning. And those of you who saw the New Covenant group on last Sunday morning, will see them go through Paul and in the translation and look at the Hebrew and what they think Paul might have been meaning. And I don't necessarily say I agree with them, but I am also not a biblical linguist. I don't know Greek. I do know Latin, and I can tell you that from looking at the Latin Vulgate, which, yes, I know isn't perfect, but when I look at the Latin Vulgate and I look at the English translations, I'm just like, but that's not what it's saying. So I can, again, I have no idea what the original Greek says because I don't know Greek, didn't study that. But
one of the other
they're
things,
taking what they want. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
One of the things I've noticed, though, is that quite often when I have asked for the words of Jesus to justify this, I have something from Paul quoted at me. And when I say, but that wasn't Jesus that said that, they're gobsmacked. You have to say, no, it was Paul. Jesus was dead by this point. And this, I mean, I remember reading the Bible as a kid. It's a huge compilation. And I remember the day the penny dropped that all of that was Paul. It wasn't more about Jesus. I must have been maybe about 7 or 8.
I get the impression from the extreme right-wing literal Biblists.
It's a good word, actually.
Biblists, I like that. Is that they're actually not that interested in Jesus because they seem to disregard anything that I know about him. And maybe I do only know the good parts about Jesus. But I don't know. But then, see, again, I was brought up to believe that Mary Magdalene was possibly Jesus' wife, though not necessarily. More likely, she was his patron. She was quite likely a wealthy lady who believed in him, and that's why he could afford to go around doing all this preaching without having a job.
Yes, she was considered to be of wealth or aristocracy or something like that, yes. And she was his supporter. Right.
Yeah, that's what I was led to believe.
It does make you wonder, though, how it's trying to slot the pieces. It's like building a jigsaw. And if you're only looking at the pieces in isolation, you don't get the bigger picture. And I really, I think it was only last week or the week before when I said to somebody that wasn't Jesus, that was Paul. And I mean, this seemed to be an absolute revelation to them. And I thought, but how could you not know that if you're sitting preaching? You give me the words of Paul and say that they're the words of Jesus and use that to justify telling me to shut my gob.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I was castigated for that as well because, again, that was in a woman telling a man what was in the Bible.
Well, it's also my understanding that, I don't know a great deal about religion, but the other two Abrahamic religions, Judaism and Islam is that women should actually be revered because they are the life bringers, they're the life givers. But
Yes,
obviously some people have a different interpretation of
well, I grew up around a lot of Jews, and given my last name, a lot of people thought I was Jewish. And I knew a lot of Yiddish, so that, sort of cemented it. Of course, I, don't really look anything like what could normally be called Jewish, but Jews look a lot like everybody else. I mean, yeah, there's certain features that one considers Jewish, Semitic, but there are also Jews that don't look anything like that. Shelley Winters was Jewish, and she commented on that. She was hitchhiking in Israel once, and she got caught. Her ride didn't show up. She ended up hitchhiking, and this older couple picked her up, and they started talking in Yiddish, and she was blonde, naturally blonde. And they said, what's this shiksa doing walking around out here? And she replied in Yiddish back to them and said, I'm not, I'm a Jew. And they were like, oh, really? But amongst Jews, women are revered because every single woman could be the potential mother of the next Messiah. You don't know when the Messiah is coming, so any woman could be the potential. And in Judaism, inheritance goes through the mother. If your mother was a Jew, you're a Jew. So yeah, and even in the Hasidic Jews, amongst Hasidic Jews, women don't necessarily study Talmud or Torah all that much, but what will happen in a lot of families is the men will, these are the ones who wear the funny hats and the clothes and everything, and keep themselves separate. The men will spend all their time studying Torah and Talmud. Then the women go out and get degrees at universities, including master's degrees, and then go out and get jobs and run businesses. They don't have any problem with that. That's not a conflict to them whatsoever. The women are out in the world running businesses because the women are freeing up the men to do the more important job to them, which is studying Torah. But yeah, that's not a conflict to them that a woman gets an education and get a job.
Well, that actually happens to some of the the Muslim countries vary so much. Well, not just the countries, but the cities will vary depending on what the imam, I'm hopeless with words, decrees is how he interprets the, I was going to say the Bible then, the Quran. Because in plenty of Muslim countries, they have no hassle with women going out to work, etc. But other countries, Saudi Arabia is one of the worst, and yet who do we have the best dealings with? I wonder if they've got oil or something.
Yes.
No, it can't be that. It can't be we deal with one of the most, awful Muslim countries because of that.
Right, and Turkey is a very advanced country. It's not all the same. And even within countries that, say, are under conflict, like Egypt, there's a big discussion that's been going on for some time about how Islamic are they going to be. But of course what we tend to get in the news is always the extreme stuff. It's
like with any, isn't it? It's like homosexuals tend to be portrayed as these flaming bitchy type males, don't they? And lesbians are always the butch dungaree wearing CND supporters, and it's the same with the right wing Christians. The ones we see the most are the ones that are ranting absolute misogynist crap.
I'd like to toss something out there. Do you think that maybe they are picking and choosing certain Bible passages to support an idea that they already have, that they've gotten from their culture, or do you really think that their beliefs purely come from their insistence on literalism in the Bible?
You've hit the nail on the head, I think.
Yeah, I would say it's
I really think it's I feel it's the same with their attitude to homosexuality. They are homophobic, but they do not want to admit it, so they find justification for it in the Bible.
I agree.
Yeah, because these same people have no hassle using banks to keep their money in.
Yeah,
what does the Bible say about that kind of thing? Doesn't rate it very,
They can condemn homosexuality using the Old Testament and eat pork.
Yes.
Yeah, and shellfish and
and
wear polyester.
Yeah.
On the back end of a cow.
Yes. I love oxtail soup.
haven't had that thing.
Let's
not
I
digress,
teased a
sorry.
number of times. Yeah, I've been told that homosexuality is an abomination. But if you look up what an abomination is in the Old Testament, basically sin is an abomination. And unequal weights and measures are an abomination. Everything, it's an abomination.
My shirt is a sin. It's mixed.
Yes.
I think I'm in 100% cotton. I don't know about my socks.
Fabric.
Anyway, yeah.
And Nichols will have elastic in it somewhere.
True. I was just thinking. But, yeah.
Actually, I'm considering that I'm allergic to almost everything, and I'm wearing all cotton. I'm probably the only one here that is not violating that particular rule.
Yeah, apart from my underwear.
Oh wait, there's some elastic in my underwear. Oh damn!
Yeah.
I'm doomed. I'm doomed.
Doomed. I'd love to get a copy of that. I can't find it anywhere on YouTube.
It was the chap in Dad's Army, wasn't it?
That's what, yeah, the tall chappy.
He was the double of my grandfather.
Excellent.
And we used to say that to my grandpa all the time.
Oh, I love that. But anyway, these rest of the people here probably got no idea what we're talking.
No idea what we're talking about. We're just mad English people, except me.
But yeah, I think Red, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. If people will use the Bible to justify their bigotry.
Yes.
And I mean, some of them may have been brought up in it, so it's a combination of it's what they actually believe, because that's the way they were brought up, and their upbringing has made them bigoted towards whether it's homosexuals or women, quite often both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if we continue to work to change the culture,
I think that's the...
Yes.
then could that possibly change those views as well?
Well,
I don't know, because if they are excusing it by faith, you're talking about having to alter the faith that they think they've got 100% right.
Oh, I'm talking over generations.
Yeah, these things never happen. I mean, because going back to what we were originally talking about, I was also wondering if the situation for battered women has changed, because it is easier for women to go out and get jobs now. I mean, back in the 60s, certainly the 50s and before then, women, even women in good relationships were pretty dependent upon their husbands a lot of the time, financially. So I'm wondering if that's improved.
I know of for the women that I knew who were battered women was because they'd never had a job, or they had a job years and years and years ago to leave their husbands. Where were they going to get the money?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we have programs now. I worked at a community college for a number of years. We have programs now that people can go to, and go to the community college and say, "Hi, I'm I've suddenly become a single mother or father, and I haven't been working for years, and I need an education. Can you help me? I need to get a job soon." And there are programs. There are a lot of 2-year programs that will get you into a job very quickly. They will help you get job placement. They will help you with food stamps and get your kids WIC and whatever you need. So that has changed. You just have to get women to do it.
Yes. But I think, if you look at women who maybe been brought up in a very fundamentalist family, are they going to do it, or are they going to just accept it?
I think, as Red was sort of saying about changing the culture, now I know you can't actually go directly into these people's lives and force them to change, but if the overall culture changes on the outside, fingers crossed not all of their children are homeschooled, and even if they are homeschooled, they will still come out into society either to get jobs or get further education, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will see the changes in mainstream life and kind of maybe start to think about what they were brought up to believe. The only way to do it is gradual. Well, I don't know, maybe it's not, but the only way I can think of to do it is these things have to happen gradually, because people are very resistant to change. And if you start to say, right, your beliefs are crap, your beliefs are wrong, don't treat women like this, don't treat whatever like this, they're kind of like, you've naturally got your hackles up, your defences are on, it's like, screw you, don't you tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So if you do it gradually throughout mainstream life, when they have to go out into society, even if they've been at home schooled in a close-knit society where that's all they've ever learnt, at some point they may have to come out and get a job, etc. Gradually, hopefully, things will change.
Yeah. I must admit, I don't hold out a lot of hope. Within the more fundamentalist communities, I don't think that will change. Because it is seen as an attack on their faith. It will be seen as an atheist attack on the faith. Because everything is now an atheist attack on the faith.
And if you don't agree with them, you're not a real Christian anyway.
Yeah. So you talk about everything from vaccines to basic science to whatever. It's all seen as an attack on the faith. Because by labelling it that, they can then ignore it and feel justified in ignoring it. And this is why I don't hold out a lot of hope for change within the more fundamentalist aspects. Although there may be change in society in general. I mean, society has made big changes as it is.
That's true, yeah. Things have changed since our day, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, but I don't know if we'll see it within the more fundamentalist communities.
Yeah.
And I think they're digging, I think I agree with Fiona to a certain extent here, because I think they're digging their heels in. They see that they're being threatened. And
I think this is why I think it has to be. Sorry, Jade.
No, go for it.
It has to be a gradual thing rather than just saying you're wrong. Stop behaving like this. It has to be a gradual thing, and I mean it's like you do. It's when your girlfriend or your sister's going out with a complete a bad choice of partner. You say to her, "Don't go out with that twat." You know, she's not going to listen. You've just got to. The way she, or in another situation, sometimes the only way for some people to learn is for them to figure it out for themselves. Which is a shame, really, because it's a pity it doesn't work. But it doesn't. You know, you can't just say you're wrong. You shouldn't be going out with that person. You shouldn't have those beliefs. You shouldn't be thinking the Bible teaches women to shut up. You've just got to gradually. And hello, Al James.
I wonder.
Yes, welcome. Hi.
Hi.
But I wonder how.
Yep. Your mic's working. Yeah, you're not very loud though, unless you've just got a quiet voice.
Okay.
But I wonder how many would even want to take any of this on board.
Well, that's the other issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I do think that, as we said, with the homosexuality debate, it's more to do with their finding a justification for their bigotry. And I just wonder if they lose their justification for their intolerance of women opening their gobs, then what does that mean for them? That they're no longer special. If you see what I'm struggling to actually articulate this.
To their,
they're like the chosen ones in a sense. They are the ones who have the answer.
Yeah.
It's a threat to their position, as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it would ever make a blind bit of difference. Even if everybody said, you know, the way you wish to treat women is absolutely wrong, completely unconscionable, I don't think it would make any difference whatsoever.
I don't think you'll change
the
dyed in the wool older folks, but the hope for me is that gradually some of the younger people will come out into mainstream society and see that you know what I mean? I think I think Red inferred earlier. It's probably going to take generations, but I mean, look at how when we were kids, look at the attitude towards homosexuality, the attitude towards women. Those have changed in my lifetime, in Jade's lifetime.
Yeah.
In yours, I don't know about the other women. I don't know what sort of age they are. But I mean, it's changed in the last 20 years, to be honest, let alone the last.
Can I add to this?
It has,
Yeah.
and I'm 28, and it's changed from what I can remember. It's changed.
Yeah. A recent poll done on millennials, the millennial generation, shows that 30% of them have left the religion they were raised in because of that religion's views on homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
70% of millennials say that the churches are turning them off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they should tell these more conservative churches that they're going the wrong way. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that some of them are just going to dig their heels in more. And, you know, rather than realize that now things have changed just in a few years. Some do adapt. What is it, World Vision International? I think they may have reversed it. But World Vision International, which is a big Christian organization, said that they would hire people who were married, who were married. Which is a big change. And just a few years ago, you were seeing most of the evangelical Christians, or at least the faces that you see on TV, just being very much against gay partnerships in any way whatsoever. And now the same people are coming out and saying, yeah, we're all for, whatchamacallit, you know, civil relationships, just don't call it marriage. We support civil relationships, just don't call it marriage. So these are the people who realize they've lost and they're adapting.
I'm on a slight tangent here. We had our first gay marriages in the UK last night.
I was just about to bring that up.
And we're a Christian nation.
Yeah, right.
Technically, we are a Christian nation, and America is secular. That absolutely fascinates me.
I know.
Actually, the differences. But anyway, let's not
Me
digress.
too.
But I don't know what they're...
I find it strange.
Yeah.
I had never actually come across such hostility to women speaking on matters of faith until recently. And I'm 50.
Yeah, you'd think it.
I'm no spring chicken, and I've spent a lot of my life in and around religion, and I've only recently come across this.
I do wonder, because I find like the more threatened people feel, the more overly defensive they are. And I do sometimes wonder if we're seeing some of the more worse aspects of this because they are feeling more threatened. And like Jade was saying, we are gradually losing people, that the churches are losing people because of their attitudes and that. And it's making them overly defensive.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to chime in that as far as politics with religion, I've noticed that Republican women who are far right are offended by Republican men who speak on their behalf about their gender differences, about their health care, about abortion, or about rape. When they see the men speak out about it, it's making them mad.
That's good to hear.
Because they want to weigh in and say, hey, you're wrong.
Well, then you still have the women like Michelle Bachmann who goes, well, my husband told me I should get another degree in a subject that I can't stand, and so I did.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can't recall the exact
some
quote,
women
but that's
who look at
essentially
her
what
as
she
a
had to say.
role model. Yeah.
I just figure there's some hope when you see that happen, though, where they're supposed to be both on the same side, but then when it comes to gender differences and the men are speaking on their behalf without their any say, they're getting mad about it. They're saying, hey, wait a minute. Did you ask me? You know.
Excellent. That's good to hear.
I spoke to a fundamentalist, very, very fundamental chappie, early 20s, not married or anything, of course. And they, of course, will become apparent in a minute. And he was sending me, he called them missiles, I called them missiles. It was some nasty PMs. And we got into a conversation, and he was going on about women and pain and childbirth and all the rest of it. And he was, get your claws out my leg, you besom. And he was saying, sorry, it was my cat. He was saying that no wife of his would be allowed any form of pain relief in labour. And that if the doctors said she had to have a caesarean section, he would refuse.
Wow.
And when I said, no, wait a minute, it's not you that gives consent, it's the woman who's in labour who gives consent, who signs the form. He said, I would forbid her, and I would leave it in God's hands. If he was going to take the two of them, then he would. And I thought to myself...
That's absurd.
Yeah, I thought to myself, you bastard. You actually think that having a willy allows you to make life or death decisions for a woman that you supposedly love?
Oh, my fiance, we've
Based on
talked
this
about...
one thing in the Bible saying that women will have pain in childbirth.
Jeez. No, my fiance and I, we've talked about these things. You know, if we
This guy
manage to get
teaches. This guy
what
teaches in a school.
Joy. Tell me he doesn't teach biology. Please tell me he doesn't teach biology.
He claims he teaches biology to, I think it's
gosh.
8th or 9th graders.
Oh, crap.
Not good. He doesn't qualify for that.
My fiance has told me, because I've told him outright, that if it comes down to me or baby, I pick baby. And he says I have to put that in writing and give it to the hospital because he won't be able to make that call.
I can understand.
He won't. And because I told him, if it comes down to me or the kid, it's the kid. You know, you keep that kid. This is my choice. And he goes, okay, that's your choice, but I won't be able to say it. I won't be able to tell them that. I will always pick you.
Yeah. But the problem comes with that guy because he was willing to give them both up.
Yeah.
It's absurd. You know, part of me kind of imagines him standing next to her bedside as she's in labor with no pain medication, and he's about groin height, and in her pain she reaches out. And I understand that a woman in labor's grip is just really intense.
Yes, it is.
He might change his mind as he's screaming soprano.
Well, my husband was standing next to me through the birth of our first child, and I did not have any pain meds, anything, to begin with. Then they came in and gave me an epidural after I squeezed my husband's hand. I squeezed it so hard that he was tearing up.
Yeah.
I broke one set of
this guy actually went further.
Nurse, he came in the next day. He had a Shanna-sized hand bruise print on his arm. It was just like the perfect shape of my hand in the form. It was a bruise. I'm sorry.
This guy actually went further, and he said that if the doctors said that they would do the section, he would demand that it was done without any anaesthetic.
This guy is sick.
My toes are curling just saying that.
Luckily for that woman, he doesn't get to make those kind of decisions. Doctors are not allowed.
There's no doctor that would agree to do that.
They'd lose their license. They'd be in prison.
And I really hope
he doesn't think his opinions are actually that far out there. He thinks that is what Christianity is all about.
And I really hope that this young man
never gets married.
Well, I hope that he shares these beliefs with anyone that he gets into a relationship with. And I hope that any young woman who is considering a relationship with him
runs
screaming.
Oh yeah, I found that attitude. I couldn't believe it. In this day and age, somebody in what was I was informed is the #1 superpower in the Western world, i.e. America, actually thought that. Wow. I was absolutely flabbergasted by that one. But with that attitude, if they actually are willing to go so far that the husband can make the life and death decisions for the wife and for the children, how many generations is it going to take?
Yeah.
Well, it's a hell of a responsibility for a man to take on to do all that, because they're unable to. They're kind of inept at making decisions for another human being that's equal to them. Because what ends up happening is there's going to be conflict behind closed doors, conflict in the home that no one really on the outside sees, but if you weren't a fly on the wall, you'd see it. It has to be an equal partnership, or just men are constantly unhappy trying to dominate over and over and over again, because they're taught you're not a man unless you dominate. You're not a man unless you have all this say, and that's a hell of a thing to put a guy through. It's unfair for a culture to do that to men.
That's why I think the women's movement is helpful to men too.
Yeah.
It is.
Is
Because
it
it says
appropriate?
women can make these decisions.
Well, and is it appropriate to put a man in the constant position of, especially in this economy, of you have to take care of your family or you're not a man?
Yeah, that is unfair.
Yeah,
it is, because their economic resource is right under their nose. It's their partner.
But I think that's a consequence of...
They marry.
Oh, sorry.
Then they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wonder though if it's a consequence of the years of subjugation of women. That now, that in a way, it's almost a sort of reaping what they've sown. And I'm not saying for that reason, let's just let them suffer. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm just wondering if these are now the consequences that in the economy that we have now, we can't say the man must be the breadwinner and all the rest of it. But the years and the decades of keeping women down, the little woman at home.
There's there's a couple of comments in the questions and answers section.
All right.
Said, wouldn't causing unnecessary suffering for no reason at all, but because you want to, the very definition of evil, and therefore what's the devil that could be the embodiment of that? Which I think, does make you wonder, because I've often thought, I don't understand why you'd do that. What else was there?
Well, looking at cultures where it is male dominant and women aren't allowed to really have the freedoms, you see that there is more starvation, children going without, serious problems. If they would have allowed the women to have their own independence, then these problems wouldn't be occurring. It would add to their economy, and it would allow the children to be able to eat. Because sometimes what happens is the breadwinner dies, or they get divorced, or something occurs, and then there's the woman without any job and any way to care for the children, and they fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
My dad's mom ran into a situation very similar to that. She ended up divorcing her first husband, who was an alcoholic. Which was how she was allowed to get divorced at that time. But it meant that, she had 4 boys. Well, it turned out that there was a family friend, and something had happened to the mother in that family. I've never gotten the full story. So he was raising an adopted son on his own. Well, culture said my grandmother couldn't get a job. Culture said that this other boy needed a mom. So these 2 people got married. No romance, purely a marriage of convenience, because culture said there needed to be a man to take care of the family, a man to have a job, and a woman to take care of the children. Now, I ended up with an absolutely amazing uncle out of the deal, because she did end up adopting this other boy. But that marriage didn't last either.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah. Because that's the other thing we're saying with I mean, sexism is damaging to both. And he said species then, but Freudian slid it up a little.
Closer than you think.
Sexism is damaging to both sexes.
It really is.
Well, currently there are fertility clinics that are big business because there are independent single women who want to have children but don't want to get married to a man, and so they are spending the money it takes to get pregnant from a donor and raise 1 or 2 children and do fine without marriage. And it's big business right now. And I find it interesting that you have Fox News or Bill O'Reilly or different people who speak for women saying, well, you know, it's not good for a child to have a single mother without any empirical evidence whatsoever that it's not. And yet this is going on.
Just as a side point here, did anybody see the story? I found the link yesterday to the Christian school that has actually excluded an 8-year-old girl.
Because she doesn't act and look enough like a girl.
Oh, I saw that.
Is that the little girl that wanted to use the boys' restroom?
No, it wasn't. No, she did not. They didn't make that clear. She did not want to use the boys' restroom. Girls in the girls' restroom were throwing a fit because a boy was in the girls' restroom, only it wasn't a boy, it was this little girl.
Oh.
Who didn't have
She
long
was short,
hair.
she was short hair.
I don't know.
She's a bit of a tomboy. And the school sent a letter home and they basically expelled her.
For being a tomboy. Good.
For basically not looking more like a girl. Even although the school uniform allows them to wear pants.
They don't even have a uniform. They wear they wear street clothes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the girls are allowed to wear pants. Trousers to us English people. So that I found very, very disturbing. And they were going on about gender ambiguity issues and they were and sexual immorality.
Yeah.
Because all this was in the school rules, this is why they were chucking her out.
Yeah, they wrote a letter saying she was unwelcome at the school because there was some confusion, you know. And they threw in the the list of rules, and one of them was immorality. She's a kid, you know. She's a
and
kid.
Everything that I read about her sounds like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Not an 8-year-old girl, not an 8-year-old boy, an 8-year-old.
Right. Exactly.
Period.
There is no gender confusion at the age of 8.
Right.
But,
Well, even
and the
if
thing is, this
someone
wee girl was she's so distressed because all her friends went to that school. She's now crying every morning going on the bus. Because she wants to go on the bus with them.
And they thought she had at school.
She's really upset now.
That's just crazy.
And the implications, if you read the article, and articles, I've read several, and you read what they're saying about her, the implications are that they think she may be homosexual. That's the implication they're making. They won't come right out and say it. She's freaking 8. She's
An
nothing.
8-year-old. My
She has to like sports. She prefers her hair short. Lots of kids at that age don't want to mess with their hair. You just want it short, so it's nothing to mess with. Wow, I mean, if you're going to condemn every little girl who's tomboyish and likes sports and likes to have her hair short, you're going to get out her. Yeah.
If you've ever fought with a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old over brushing their hair and it hurts, then short hair sounds like a real good idea.
I've got curly hair. I'll show you all a picture. Give me a second of when I was 3 or 4, and I always wanted long hair, but my parents kept it short because I was so tender-headed they couldn't get a brush through it. And it was this huge ordeal to brush my hair with me screaming and crying, and I remember this. And so my mother chopped my hair off and kept it that way. And I had short hair up through kindergarten at least. Like really short, shorter than now.
But what is so scary about this is that they are justifying what they have done because they're a Christian school with Christian values, and that women are supposed to be feminine and all the rest of it. Now, I'm sorry, but as far as I was aware, Jesus said, suffer the little children to come to me. He didn't say, suffer the little children, as long as the girls look like girls and the boys look like boys, to come to me.
It's very bizarre. I went to a Catholic private school in my freshman year in high school, and it was all girls school, and there were plenty of tomboys, plenty of boyish girls. In fact, I'm pretty sure a certain percentage of them were indeed lesbians. It's just that there's genetic diversity in the population, and there's always going to be this ambiguity with gender. And I think people need to come to terms with it if they want to live in the modern age instead of some antiquated ideal that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we know that gender isn't gender, sex, sexuality, sexual identity, gender identity, all of these things. There isn't a binary.
Right.
There isn't even a single line. It's multidimensional. And I've seen women on YouTube say, for example, that is one word but I'm thinking of, who says that at a certain time of the month she feels more like a man than a woman.
Gender fluid.
You know, we're gender fluid, and we have to stop trying to put people in little boxes. And I think this is, again, this changing world that we're in, and people starting to realize that, sex, sexuality, gender, it's all very fluid. It's not fixed. And not only that, it can change throughout your life.
Yes.
This terrifies people.
So much more girly now than I ever was in my 20s and before then.
Right. And I was talking to a friend of mine about that the other day, about how, for instance, someone can be a gay man and then happen to fall in love with a woman. Doesn't change the fact he's a gay man. It just means he fell in love with a woman. She found that a little hard to understand. And then I turned it around and said, well, have you ever she's also a lesbian. And I said, have you ever known a woman who was a lesbian who happened to fall in love with a guy? That made sense to her because she was familiar with that. I said, see, it doesn't change the fact she's basically a lesbian. It means she fell in love with a guy. And I pointed out to her, as a matter of fact, one of them right now is married to the mayor of New York. The mayor of New York's wife was with women before she met him. She fell in love with him. And he's her life partner. They're married. They have kids. But it's not a matter of you have to be this, you have to be that. That you just need to be yourself. And everybody has what we think of as masculine and feminine traits.
Now,
but to put an 8-year-old in a little box like that, that is just so appalling to me. And how terrible, un-Christian.
Assumptions.
Yes, and scary assumptions.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, we are all both gender fluid to varying degrees, and our sexuality is fluid to varying degrees. And for the record, I was not allowed to drink that beer. It was it's just a funny picture from when I was a child, and it's the only one I happen to have skin. But short hair.
I mean, I was always chewing the ends of my hair. My mum said to me on numerous occasions, if you don't stop chewing the ends of your hair, you're going to get it all cut off. I got all my hair cut off. Well, not literally all, but it was a very short bob, basically. I had short hair better than long hair. I love long hair on men.
I had long hair as a child. I could sit in my hair. But I hated getting it brushed.
I love it. Oh, my God.
I still do.
I hated it as a child.
As an adult, I love long hair, but as a child, I would scream when they would brush it. So they cut it off. Fortunately, the pixie cut was in then. And so I had short hair.
I was nicknamed Nap Nap at 8 years old because my mother finally had stopped, hacking my hair off, but I still wouldn't let her brush it, and so I had big rat's nests in the back of my hair.
Well, see, I screamed more at the hairdresser than I did when my hair was getting brushed. So I was left with long hair. But when I was about, I think, 5, I got head lice. As every kid does.
Yeah.
And with this hair that I could sit on, I couldn't get cut. Now, you know how you have to go through it with a fine, fine comb?
Oh.
Yeah. That's a lot of shampoo as well.
Ooh,
isn't it?
ouch, yes.
Yeah.
Head lice was also part of the reason my hair was kept short. It was an issue at the school I was going to.
Yeah,
There was
oh,
lots of
it's-
cases of it, so I got
Yeah.
it separate.
Well, and
But I mean, at what point? Sorry, Red. I was going to say, at what point? Because going back to the 18th century, I think I'm not very good with them. Men had long hair. They often had
Yeah.
it in a ponytail with ribbons in.
Mm-hmm.
and lace shirts.
And
Yeah.
powdered wigs.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, both men and women had. In fact, the women
And
started
that's
to
for
become more
both men and women.
flamboyant to compete with the men. I think.
And children all ran around in dresses until what age?
Yeah, there's a photo of my dad in his
About
christening
4 or
dress.
5, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
what
mean,
we would now consider to be school age.
People pointed out about this little girl that Jesus wandered about with long hair and a long dress.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
point, actually. Yeah.
Well, and I do
What
wonder,
were they going on about?
you brought up the head lice issue. I do wonder if that small private school got an epidemic of head lice, if they would change their tune about long hair on girls.
Yeah. But it wasn't just her hair. They were saying that her face didn't look girly enough.
Oh, and what's she supposed to do about that at
It
age?
was everything. Yeah, it was everything about her wasn't
But that's
feminine. This is what.
that's
what's
just her
upset me.
her literal makeup, not
Yeah. That's the thing. This is what's upset me so much because they have condemned this little girl based on her looks,
That's
and
crazy.
I find that. I mean, what long-term damage will this have done to a child of 8?
Yeah. And her grandparents who are raising her are saying there's nothing wrong with her, she's just a little girl.
Yeah.
I think they said she likes to play
There's
in the
nothing wrong with her,
mud.
she's just a little girl. I mean, that's true. It's
Mm.
how outrageous. I honestly, as far as I'm concerned, this is a great big advertisement for why no one should send their kids to that school. Those
I
people are
honestly
sick.
think that the American civil liberties
There
should
you
get in
go.
on this one.
Does
I
make
really
it-
think they should, because this is one of the most blatant forms of a new type of discrimination. Not
But they're a
feminine
private
enough.
school, so they can set the rules how they
Yeah,
want.
it's a private school.
Yeah, they can't do much there, but
Oh, they can. Even
The thing is-
if a private school banned blacks, would they be allowed
Well, I
to do
think
that?
I think they could have a case, not because a private schoul pretty much can do what they want, but because of the letters they sent, the way they addressed her. I mean, they're basically slandering a child.
They
An
are.
8-year-old. I just, my mind just, goes tilt when I think about it,
Rose brought this up in the chat. I'm going to switch this around a little bit because I'm seeing it here and there. Boys who like girly stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering, would a boy be banned from there?
Yeah, I mentioned raisingmyrainbow.com. It's it's a blog written by this little boy's mother, and the little boy likes dolls and pink and purple, and he wears dresses, and this is just what he likes. And when asked, "Oh, I'm a boy," and but he just loves these things. That's what he's into. And his mom, instead of trying to beat it out of him, just goes, "Okay." And lets him wear what he wants to school, and he's in school now, and pretty much accepted, and mostly wears like pants and a shirt with his sparkly backpack. And,
Yeah.
but that's just what the kid's into. He's a kid.
Yeah.
And while most, in this one case, with Sunny is the little girl's name at the Christian school, that's we do see occasional cases of, girls who aren't girly enough.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're seeing more and more, and I think it goes back to that underlying misogyny in our culture, is it's bad to be girly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you start visiting that on an 8-year-old, it's gone too far. It's gone far too far.
Well, and you have to stop and think. We know about this case.
Mhm.
How many cases do we not know about?
Yeah.
How many little children, boys or girls, are being essentially abused verbally or in other ways by having people assume who or what they are and mistreating them for that? Oh, we don't want you playing with our children. It could even be on this level. I'm sorry, we don't want your daughter or granddaughter or whatever playing with our children. Why not? Well, we think he or she sets a bad example. Well,
I've got
bad example.
I have two other examples. A little girl had a birthday party. The theme of the party was princes and princesses. I always have trouble with that. And one of the little boys who was invited wanted to go as a princess. So his dad went out and bought him a princess dress. And he was very happy in his princess dress, and he went to the party. Yes, exactly. And he, all of the other kids, no problem. None of the children saw a problem with it. The other parents were giving his dad a hard time.
How old were the kids?
I think in that situation, probably 5, 6 years old.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I wish I could find a copy of it. I don't know if any of you are familiar with a British artist called Grayson Perry.
Yes.
Yeah, he wears.
Yes.
Yes, Grayson Perry.
Now, the first time I ever saw him, he was wearing quite a frilly pink dress. And the first thing that went through my mind, I'll be perfectly honest here, was, good grief, even as a woman I wouldn't wear that. I wish to goodness I could find a copy, and I've even written to Channel 4 and they said that there's no video out of it. He made a program on Channel 4 called Why Men Wear Frocks. It was a fantastic. He's happily married. He's got a couple of kids, and he's also a bike racer. He does motorbike racing, where he wears all his leathers and that, And he was just saying that, every now and again he wants to dress up in very feminine clothes that I personally wouldn't wear because I'm not that feminine, to be honest. But I am more girly than I used to be. No, seriously, and sit down in a nice little cafe, having sort of a tea and cakes. And he says he just likes to chat. And I actually sat there and I thought, actually, even I quite like to do that from time to time, to channel my feminine side and to have a sort of girly afternoon with my sister having tea and cakes at a little tea shop. And I knew exactly where he was coming from.
Well, not only that, but I find skirts to be infinitely more comfortable than pants.
All summer.
Yeah, especially in the weather. Yeah.
Well, I find men that go outside of their comfort zone to do things like that rather sexy. I mean, you know who Eddie Izzard is.
Oh, Eddie Izzard, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
he's fantastic.
my friend, one of my friends used to be his manager, so I got to see him live a couple of times.
Oh, I hate you.
Really nice
guy,
really clever guy, but he just loves to cross-dress. He loves to wear makeup when he can. And I find it fascinating because I'm such a tomboy. I'm not into that. But I find it fascinating that a man can do that. It's beyond me.
Yeah, my fiance every now and again will don one of my dresses and just come hang out in the living room, and he does it to make me laugh more than anything, but he also finds skirts and kilts and things very, very comfortable.
Oh, kilts.
So every now and again he'll just come hang out in a dress, one of mine.
See, this is one of the areas where sexism works in reverse, isn't it? Where men aren't allowed to wear. I mean, technically speaking, I cross-dress all the time. But I mean, actually my top's dusty pink. But I'm in blue jeans. I've got a black t-shirt on, have to check. And I've got a sweatshirt over that, which is what I wear nearly all the time. Jeans, t-shirt, sweatshirt, which technically speaking, or, if you want to, for the sake of argument, is me cross-dressing.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm expected
But I'm allowed to, because I'm a woman, and I can wear what the heck I like. And men are very discriminated when it comes to clothing.
I just love a man in a kilt.
Well, you might remember I did a video last You rather liked that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
A lot of people rather like that one. I'll find the link for it for those of you who want to see it. It's a very short video, but what happened is a young man who was of Scottish ancestry wanted to wear a kilt to a formal dance. And they wouldn't let him.
Was it the
What?
prom or something?
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, some Midwestern conservative, whatever, and he went to, they went to the school board and everything. They still wouldn't let him because it wasn't manly enough. So I did this little brief video about kilts aren't manly enough, and I showed a bunch of images of men in kilts with some music in the background.
What we really should have done is sent some guys in kilts from Glasgow up there and tell them they were. Sorry.
I put the names of everybody under it, as like you've got like Patrick Stewart, and I ended with Sean Connery,
Yes.
So here are all these really good-looking guys wearing kilts, and they look fantastic in their kilts.
Yeah.
But it's not manly enough. If you've got like Patrick Stewart and Sean Connery and people like that wearing kilts, but kilts aren't manly enough. But yeah, this.
It's manly with their boots and their kilts and their whole thing. It's
Well,
really manly.
Did he not have a little dagger in his?
Just have them watch some footage from some Highland games.
Yeah.
Those men aren't manly.
I was really quite surprised because it's fairly common in communities that are of Irish or Scotch ancestry. Ancestry. I always do that. And I know I do that, and people will go, "What?" And I go, "Sorry." Or Irish and Scots ancestry, for the men to wear kilts at their wedding and to have all the groomsmen wearing kilts. It's very common here.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just couldn't believe these people wouldn't let this kid wear a kilt to a formal. I mean, he wasn't going to wear some raggedy old thing. He was going to wear a formal, the whole thing.
And most tuxedo shops carry kilt tux jackets.
Yeah.
Tux jackets designed for kilts because they have to.
They do.
They're higher. They end a bit higher, if I recall.
Yes, they
It's
do.
a special.
it's a different cut that's specifically for that. Now,
They said it's common here. What?
Now, at a risk of repeating myself, I think that even that goes back to, okay, you're saying this is not manly enough. What's so big about being manly?
Yeah.
Why does the man have to be manly? You're saying this is being feminine. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. And the other thing is these things have changed so much because, like I said, back in Jesus' day, everybody wore dresses. Well, whole countries, they still wear dresses because it's practical. Knitting, macrame, these are what sailors, knitting was what sailors did.
Yeah.
But if you're a bloke, you saw knitting, you'd be like, what's he doing? See a guy doing macrame, what's he doing? How did these things change? And why is it, and as Red was saying, why is it bad that it's not manly?
I don't know. I would argue that it's more manly when the man is absolutely willing to
if he's comfortable
in a woman's skirt or a woman's dress, or and do these things. My fiance lets me put makeup on him if I get bored. Like, he thinks it's hilarious. He doesn't mind.
That's fun.
It takes a lot more,
The next day is still with eyeliner going on.
Hey, I've seen these guys in eyeliner. It's pretty sexy.
I agree.
If people's comfortable with it, then so what? I spend my life in jeans or jodhpurs, short or long boots.
Yeah.
Carrying a whip, covered in mud.
Sorry.
Talking about children, we had some family pictures done, and 13's son had been chewing on his bottom lip for months. We've been trying and treating it and trying to get him to stop. Just a constant thing. But here we are about to go for these family pictures, and he's got this red from his bottom lip down to his chin. And it's chapped, and nobody wants that in their pictures. Not even he's going to want to see that 30 years from now. So I had some cover-up that matched his skin tone. Now, even him at that young age started to throw a fit about me wanting to put makeup on him. Now, between his sister and I, we convinced him that even his big manly actors that play like Batman and Spider-Man and Superman, that they all wear makeup, especially in front of a camera.
Which is true.
And once we reminded him of that, oh, sure, he had no problem with it. And those are still some of the best pictures we have. They're incredibly adorable.
Yeah.
And he won't have that memory of this strange habit he had as a child.
Yeah. And
Right,
that's probably actually more important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Along the same line, I'd like to mention that the two boys recently who were harassed at school because they were My Little Pony fans.
Yes.
Yes.
And the one boy, I think, is still in the hospital because he tried to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
And because he was a My Little Pony fan, and part of the reason he's a My Little Pony fan is because his uncle, who he really liked, is a My Little Pony fan. And the other little boy, the school told him to stop carrying his favorite backpack to school. Sorry, well, school is work. My parents always used to tell you, your job is going to school.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let him wear his favorite backpack because it had one of the My Little Pony characters on it.
Right,
And
and
that he was
that's
being
well,
teased. And
Part of the reason why they don't allow it, the reason why they said they didn't want him to do that is because they wanted to take away one more responsibility they had to prevent bullying.
yes.
So that way there wouldn't be any excuse to bully him. But really what they're doing is they're playing into the hands of bullying culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
My
Exactly.
problem with that entire story was the bullying on behalf of the adults.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Well, and my take was, well, the school should stop the bullying. This is a perfect chance for the school. This is what's called a teaching moment.
Yes.
This is a chance for the school to teach the kids not to bully someone.
But it's
There's
exactly
nothing wrong. Yeah.
it's the same as we see with rape. Oh, the woman must have done something to bring it on herself.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the same with the bullying. What they do is they try and alter the victim.
Yeah.
I've heard of victims of bullying who have been told they're going to be sent to cognitive behavioural therapy to enable them to cope with the bullying rather than deal with the bullies. And this wasn't children. This was adults in a workplace, in a government workplace.
Oh.
Oh, good grief! What's that? So it's victim
In that
blaming.
workplace, an adult was told that they should go to cognitive behavioural therapy to enable them to deal with the boss who bullied them and who was known to be a bully. And this person was the bully's 5th victim.
Good
5th.
grief. That's crazy.
And that's the same with the boy in My Little Pony. It's easier to deal, to get the victim just to accept what's happening in some way and to alter what they're doing than to actually deal with the problem.
Yeah, that's what happened to me as a child. I'd come home crying from being bullied and made fun of. I was a chubby kid. And I'm also very tall for my age. I'm 5'9". I've been nearly 5'9" since 5th grade. So I'm very tall for my age, always. And I came home crying because of bullies, and I don't want to go to school anymore. And the next morning, I have a stomach ache when I didn't, because I didn't want to go and deal with that. And all I got from my parents was just ignore them.
Well, see, one of the advantages I had going to Catholic school, although when we moved, I had to go to public school for a couple years, but in the Catholic schools I went to, bullying was not tolerated. Period. And nuns wouldn't have it.
That's good to hear. Wouldn't that have been a good teaching moment in that Christian school?
Yes.
Yeah.
When the little girls were throwing a fit about Sonny being in the girls' bathroom.
Yeah, exactly.
That no, not all girls look alike. She is a girl.
Yeah.
That's all that would have taken.
You know, this thing about bathrooms just blows me away. A lot of trans women get this problem, and that the feminists come in, or Concerned Women for America have to get involved to try to prevent any kind of damage happening to girls in the bathroom just simply from having a presence of somebody who doesn't look like them. in their bathroom. I don't get that. You know, it's a bathroom. Just go in, do your business.
Yeah.
It tends to be like this little social area or something, or just, it's like sacred almost.
Wow.
And a
But
bunch of adults having to step in to protect the girls and that sort of thing. It's just
wow. See, when I've been at places and I need to go, sorry, XR, I didn't mean to talk over you there. When I need to go, and sometimes the ladies is full, I go to the men's.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going to stand around for, however, especially if there's a great big long queue.
If
And I
they
know
have
in the men's,
salt,
the cubicles are rarely.
One day I went to the theater in San Francisco, and there was this huge long queue for women.
Mm.
And I walked into the women's room, and then to the men's room, and the men were like, "Huh?" And I said, "I'm not looking at anything." And I went in, did my business, and as I came out, other women were coming in, and I watched. When I left the room, I saw other women going, "Hey, yeah, and we're going to go in there." So I basically started an invasion of the men's room.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that we've
By
all
the way, can I just say, ladies? Could I just say, remember earlier on I was talking about my hero, who's been helping me out with my sore back.
Yeah, just saw him walk through.
There you go. That's there, ladies.
Hello.
Vince, my hero.
Hi, Vince.
oh wow, what a nice kitchen too.
That is Vince, and he deserves a round of applause for dealing with nasty, scary, scratchy, bitey horses.
Yeah.
The ladies are clapping. Hold on.
Wouldn't catch me going with horses.
I love that kitchen. I love all the cast iron pans you have hanging down there.
It's nice, isn't it?
Do you like it?
Oh
It's-
my God, I'm drooling.
That's-
Yes.
And
oh no, we're
that's my homemade dressmaking.
we like kitchen.
Oh, wow.
I made that myself.
Oh wow.
Yeah, going back to
That's
this
what
victim thing, that you see it on YouTube an awful lot, where if somebody's kind of like, please don't speak to me like that, the bully's response is, oh, man up, or whatever the expression is. The problem is, you're such a pansy and intolerant, just suck it up, because that's what the internet's like. And that's sometimes the arguments are just silly, but there are times where, like, yeah, you are bullying that person.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking you not to, and your response is, it's your fault for being such a wimp on the internet. It's like,
Or my favorite,
Excuse me?
I think you might find that this is a little bit of a soapbox for me. My favorite, stop being such a girl.
yeah.
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 I
Really?
don't mind
That is
Well,
dropping a
what were
big
you-
girl's blouse, but I don't like that one.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what were you
Being
expecting?
a girl, you
dragon?
might
I could do
scratch
that
your
one
eyes
too.
out. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that quite often these things get thrown around without thinking about it. Oh, stop being a girl.
Mm,
Stop being a girl, that's gay.
Yeah.
yeah. Man up.
Yeah.
It's just a very slight tangent, and just because I've only remembered it, did anybody see there was a hangout a few nights back where a diabetic was booted for injecting her insulin?
I didn't see that, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why would that be? Why
Well,
would
because she was shooting up.
That's what they said.
Ah.
Or
Well,
inject
I can only think of one person who would do such a thing, because that sort of thing happened to me too. I have MS, and I used to show myself giving injections.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take injections weekly, the interferon, and I got smeared as a junkie because of that. And the person who did this is pretty well known, kind of infamous, still around. But back in the day, it was like, just say it from your channel, because you have this large channel, and it tends to become like the truth, Yeah.
I just thought I would throw that in there because I just remembered it.
I tease 13 all the time because by telling him that he needs to go shoot up. It's insulin.
Even a gout has shown himself giving his injections that he takes. There's another user who's the man, I can't remember his username. He's just been diagnosed in like maybe late in life, and he's just started taking them.
I've been on injected blood thinners for a short period of time at one point.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the same type of thing, like people who are taking these shots because they have MS are also being prescribed in certain states medical marijuana. So they're getting to show that on YouTube too. It's kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Get the acceptance out there.
Indeed.
Totally makes sense.
I'm going to pause once again for another shout out. Exiled, if you'd like to handle this one.
Yes. Okay. Some of us are very aware of this. Others of you may not know. But this is the date that we do our annual Madness, Mayhem, and Charity event to raise money and awareness of HIV, AIDS, the research, and to raise money. Now this year it's on Vaughn TV. Of course, we all know Deb Shell. Those of us who've been around a while, we know Deb Shell, who hosts it. I think one of the guests are matching donations. That would be Zonstar. So there's a link in the description, and every one of us, even if we can't afford to donate very much, we should go and lend support in the form of being there, just being there in the comments. So that's it.
I'd like to say that's a women's issue too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, it certainly is. And in the early days, women weren't considered as being vulnerable for it, and a lot of women's cases of AIDS went by the wayside because they weren't tested.
Am I correct in? I can't recall where I heard it, but I think it's actually easier for a woman to get HIV from a man than it is for a man to get it from a woman.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Oh, with the exception of anal sex. If you're talking about heterosexual sex, yes. But
Yes.
yeah. Because anal sex, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual, has its own problems because the tissue there is not it is far more fragile and easier to tear, and that's where you can get AIDS.
Well, the reason why women fell on the wayside basically is the gay community was very well organized, and because they were very well organized, they could have the campaigns and the ads that it took to create HIV awareness, and that's why the focus was on gay men in the beginning.
And it was still a gay disease.
Right.
Well, that's what people thought it was, but
yeah.
Yeah, I've been researching, again, I've got a whole bunch of projects in the works here. There's a list of statistics on homosexuality that are on Christian website after Christian website after Christian website. And they were nice enough to actually put references this time. Most time when you see this stuff, there's no references. And so I've managed to not only investigate all the references, but I purchased the books and gotten all of the papers that they're talking about. And they clearly don't know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I wanted to point out is that if you look at that, and almost all of their statistics come from the 1970s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So this is during a time when people were heavily closeted. But if you notice, paper after paper after paper, or all of their let's put this way, all of their statistics, almost all of them are referring to gay men. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the papers they're reading or the books they're reading refer to gay men and gay women, they only talk about gay men. So this whole focus during this time was AIDS is a homosexual disease, and they meant homosexual male. So even heterosexual males were not being screened for HIV because it was not considered. Straight guys weren't getting this. This is a queer disease. Only queer people get it.
Yep.
Brian J. just informed me. I don't know. I don't know where these statistics are. This is kind of shocking to me. There are 50 new cases an hour of women being diagnosed with HIV.
Yeah, it's mostly women have it globally.
I think the first time it was noticed in broader society was when one of the guys from the American Cop show, was it Paul Michael Glazer or is it the other one? His wife had a blood transfusion and got HIV, and I think that kind of started to change things from there on because it's not sex and it's not a male who's got HIV.
Oh, it's a married woman.
Yeah.
Also, Elizabeth Taylor's daughter-in-law.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Although I think she and Elizabeth Taylor's son were divorced at the time, but still, this was something that does happen to women. It does,
Yep.
and happen to heterosexual men. And in some cases, because it was such focused on being a homosexual disease, and what fed that, of course, was the homophobia in this country.
Exactly.
And even fed it overseas, because people in other countries like Africa, where it was spreading like wildfire, in the heterosexual population, the people there were reading the information from the United States. Oh, it's a homosexual male disease. It's only gay men get it, and so we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to inform our people about it. And it just happened to enter the gay male population here in North America first. That's all there is to it. And I will tell you, too, that the heterosexuals should be glad that it entered the gay male population first, because that is a small population, so the disease was identified earlier than it likely would have been in the heterosexual population at large. Think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
Well, in Scotland, it entered the drug addict population.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting equal number of cases, male, female,
Yeah, 'cause you got shared needles.
heterosexual, because it was sharing needles.
Yeah, sorry.
And in fact, Edinburgh became the AIDS capital of Europe because of that.
I'd forgotten that.
And so I think here we didn't have the same problems in trying to get the message out that it wasn't just a homosexual disease, because we could see that it never had been. And so I think, a lot of the stuff was taken on board. The government was putting out public information videos about safe sex, using condoms, sharing needles, and they weren't specifying anything about the homosexual population. This was addressed to everybody. But I do find that in some of the more fundamentalist religious people, they have hung on to this idea of HIV being a homosexual disease, because
But I would just interject here. I've seen, it's obviously, we all know it's a highly stigmatized disease to have.
Yeah.
But I've seen atheists even doing this. I've seen people who are claimed to be well-read and always looking down their nose at the religious people in this community, giving homosexuals who are in our community who have HIV a hard time and mocking them and doing that sort of thing. So I don't think it's just the religious who are doing this. It's just a highly stigmatized disease still.
I'm thinking that maybe
they want to be able to shout punishment from God.
Well, maybe
That's
it's
what they want to be
because
able to
it's being
shout.
used as a distraction. It's a distraction to hide behind bigotry.
Yeah. As another justification for their homophobia.
And this was a few years ago. I hope things have changed. I don't know. I don't have any recent information. But there was a big problem in a couple of countries in Africa where propaganda, superstition had gotten around that having sex with a virgin would cure you of AIDS.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
So there were men running around raping virgins.
Little girls.
Yes.
Yeah, because the younger, the better. That's what they thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the younger you could make more certain that she was a virgin.
Yeah, I think there's still.
Wow.
I think in Africa it's still pretty common to. For very young girls to be forced into marriage, and the idea is to keep the adult men from getting AIDS. I think is what the idea is.
The
with
logic.
you marry them to these very young virgins, but the problem is, these men are then giving these young girls AIDS, getting them pregnant, and they're not able to deliver safely because they're not even all the way through puberty yet. So they're not entirely developed. They're not grown.
And then, of course, there was Thabo Mbeki, who decided to side with that chappie who claimed that HIV did not cause AIDS. It was a vitamin deficiency.
What?
Oh,
Oh my
brother.
goodness.
Have you not heard of this?
I've not heard of that.
Yes, I've heard of
There's
that.
He was a successor to Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
yes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I can't remember the name of the so-called scientist who decided that Prusner, was it? I'm not sure. But he said that HIV did not cause AIDS, and for that reason, women with HIV who gave birth were not being given the antiretrovirals, and neither were the babies when they were born. So
Grief.
50% of babies born to an HIV-infected mother, I think, don't have HIV, but they get it from the breast milk if the mother isn't on antiretrovirals.
Oh, gee.
And South Africa banned antiretrovirals based
I
on this
feel that.
faulty science.
Good grief.
Did you not know about this?
Well,
I
wasn't
didn't
there?
know about that.
Wasn't there? Oh, the antiretrovirals are bad medicine from the West. They're trying to control our population or something like that.
Yep.
Oh, my
I don't remember, but yeah.
There's a
Because-
combination of retroviruses and making sure that you're eating right and you're taking care of yourself, and combining both things. And
Yes.
people can remain, carriers, but not have full-blown AIDS. They can postpone the
Yes,
actual full-blown
exactly.
AIDS.
Because
And
every disease gets worse with malnutrition.
yeah, and so basically, there's now people. There are prostitutes in third world countries being studied because they have HIV, but they're not getting AIDS. They're just living with it, and they're trying to figure out genetically what makes them different, that they can withstand it versus people who just die. It's a combination of both the viruses mutating and us kind of keeping up with it. So it's just basic evolution, but
Yeah.
figuring it out.
Thabo Mbeki actually came to the university that I was postdocing in, and the students organised a huge protest. Now, as a postdoctoral researcher, I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was. Because I felt so strongly about this. I could not believe in this day and age that a government would come out with something like that based on one rogue scientist. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It is, and this is one of the many reasons why I want to see better science education, not just over the evolution and creation issue, but how can you make an informed decision on a vaccination or antiretrovirals, anything like that, if you don't have the required scientific knowledge. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to be an expert.
No, you just need basic scientific literacy that's equivalent in our country, in the U.S., to just the 4th grade level, and you'll be able to discern the pseudoscience from the real science.
Yeah, but the problem is they're not getting that.
No, they're not. And there's some. They're trying to pass laws to even let kids opt out of science if they don't. If it conflicts with their religious beliefs. And how ridiculous is that?
I mean, they go on about secular science. Have you ever done secular arithmetic or secular maths or secular geography or secular metalwork?
Yeah.
Sorry, secular spelling. There we go.
Yes, exactly.
There we go. Oh, that avoids God and devil and demon. No, you can't use those words. That's secular spelling, I guess.
Yeah. But I actually heard somebody in a hangout talking about information. And they said something about, we're talking about biochemistry of DNA, and they said, yes, but is that meaningful chemistry?
Huh?
And I thought, what is meaningless chemistry?
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, why do you tell the difference between a meaningful hydrogen bond and a meaningless hydrogen bond? Ask it.
Yes.
Well,
So the
Fiona, you
meaningless-
see, the meaningless hydrogen bond is when the hydrogen doesn't really care.
Well, obviously, that right there is why I flunked out of Chem 2. It was a meaningless chemistry.
You must have been, yeah. You taught all the meaningless stuff.
If it had been meaningful, then I would have passed the class.
Right.
Uh,
Wow.
Yeah, to go back just for a second on the whole AIDS thing and the research I've been doing, and the homophobia. One of the really interesting things is they keep harping on not only about AIDS and homosexuals, but STDs and homosexuals. And as I pointed out, they've always mentioned homosexual men. Look at all the statistics that these homosexuals have more STDs and more AIDS than heterosexuals. Well, they're forgetting homosexual women, because although homosexual men have higher rates of AIDS and STDs than heterosexual men, homosexual women have the least.
yes.
We're at the far end of this whole spectrum. But they ignore us because that screws up their statistics.
That's
Yes,
because
because
lesbians
I
are blessed
noticed
by
that
God.
screaming flaw. I saw that myself. And I said,
Yeah, I
None of the
agree.
statistics are secular. They're secular statistics. You see, this is the thing. If it goes against their, what they call non-secular worldview, a word I hate, then they ignore it. They completely ignore it. They just say, oh, but that's secular science, or that's secular statistics.
Science
That is
by
an
nature is-
absolute load of garbage. Sorry, but it is.
or to call science a religion so they can place it on an equal playing field with their belief.
It's because they couldn't get creationism designated as a science that decided to get science designated as a religion. Basically, that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
Sorry, you've got me right on one of my hobby horses, and I'm getting close.
Yeah, they'd like to change the definitions according to how they want to change the definitions, but not
Yeah.
according to the world dictionaries. They just want to change the
Yeah.
context, change the definition, and make believe that their mock-up of the world and their perspective is real, that as fundamentalists, we're the victims. We're the group of people that are fighting for the rights of the world to make the world a better place. Don't you want to be on our side because they're all evil out there?
And can some of these people explain why they are using their computers to put forth this message?
But the computer's meaningless. The molecules that it's made out of are meaningless.
No, they'll argue it's actually meaningful molecules, I think.
Yeah. Or is the interweb secular or religious?
Ask anyone who's stuck at home all day, bedridden, disabled, just how meaningless their computer is.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I think that is great about the internet and the computer is there are a number of people that I talk to on the internet who are agoraphobic. They would have no social life if it weren't for their computers.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was a television show a while back. I can't remember which one. It was one of the detective type shows. And a guy accidentally got killed by a neighbor's discharge of a gun. The gun went through the wall. The guy was dead. When they went to investigate this guy, they were like, oh, this poor man, he has no life. He just has this little room and this computer. So sad for him. And while they were there, they heard this ding on the computer, and they looked at it, and it was someone saying, hey, we haven't heard from you for a while. What's going on? And as they started to investigate, they realized this guy had friends all around the world who cared for him and talked to him. They had a wake. They ended up having a wake via computer, which I was really charming. And people went on and said, you know, when my father was in the hospital, he was with me all night long that night talking to me. And there was, you know, when my son was in that accident, he was right there for me. And it was like this sudden awareness that, no, this guy maybe lived in this little room, but he didn't live in the entire world. And
That's
he had
a positive
people
message.
who helped him and loved him. Yeah, the computers are so... The internet that we have today is just so fantastic. For all of the bad things it does, for all of the terrible trolls out there, there are so many people who would be really bereft without it.
Yes.
It's a lifeline, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I fall into
And
the agoraphobic category, and it helps a lot. Like, I feel better generally, like on any given day, when I have the opportunity to talk to people without having to leave my comfy little nest on the corner of the couch, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with my neighbors, and I can go outside. Not outside, it's strangers. That's my deal, and there's strangers everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and I just
I
like
know
the
exactly
ability to
what you
talk to
mean.
intelligent people.
Yeah.
I was walking down the street and there was a stranger hitting the light corner, going beep 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 over and over again. And I just went up to him and I go, Jesus Christ! And he looked at me and he goes beep 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 even more. And I go, okay, I just gotta go home. People are crazy. They're just crazy. People are crazy. And I even saw a homeless guy waiting outside of the bank. He was just sitting there, and he looked so forlorn. So I found whatever change I could in my car, went up to him, and put my hand in his hand, and just put the change in his hand. And he kind of had this face, all like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Don't worry about it." I go, this is all I have right now. I just thought you could use it. And then he looked like he was gonna cry.
Yeah.
Then I went back in my car and went home like, oh, poor guy. Just people. It's just people out there.
I read an article about the human touch and how that affects the homeless population. Because no one wants to even look at them, much less touch them. They're dirty. Like we're going to get some sort of disease. Well, I will admit most of the homeless people who panhandle in my area are scam artists.
Yeah.
I know this. But, I went with my gut one day, a gas station that I occasionally stop at. There was a guy outside of there, and I'm like, okay, he did ask me for some money. I'm like, okay, something in my gut said, go ahead and do it. And I did, but I thought about that article, and I had $1 or $2, something like maybe a $5 bill, something like that, folded up in my hand. And I took his hand in both of mine and held it for just a second, giving him that money. And yeah, he got that look.
Yeah.
But it turned out that was what he needed. This guy had a job. He was trying to get enough money to stay at the extended stay hotel that night so he could get out of the cold and get a shower. Because even with a job, he couldn't afford it.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
That's absolutely shocking.
No, even with Vince working and me bringing in a little bit via working online and whatnot, we've been nearly evicted several times. And Vince has a job, and Vince makes money, and we pay our bills and juggle them as best we can. But we've still, come this close to being evicted several times and had to ask for help.
From what I've seen, I don't want to start a sort of American Anglo war here, but it strikes me as that your safety nets aren't as good as we have in the UK, and your labour laws in some places seem absolutely appalling to me. I watched a programme about, I was going to say Asda then, at Walmart, and I was just shocked. I just thought, this is like a first world country. This is supposed to be the greatest nation. And you have Walmart with the, and people saying that, oh yeah, I can get sacked without any warning. I'm like, you can't do that in the UK. In the UK, you have to get 2 verbal warnings and then a written warning. You can't just say.
Have you any idea what it's actually like? I can. There's a large grocery place, right? Supermarket. And a chap that I know worked for it. Now, he had a stomach ulcer, and it ruptured. And so he was in hospital. He had surgery, and he was in hospital, I think, for 2 weeks. And then his GP signed him off for another week. So he was off in total for 3 weeks. And when he went back to his work, he was called in and given a formal written warning.
Wow. Yeah.
Tesco's.
Well, yeah.
In the UK, that happened in the UK.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the UK, and I'm sure there are lots of employers who wangle around the rules and regulations, but my point is, from what I can see in some of the states in America, they don't even have these regulations that they need to wangle themselves around. And they have no free... there is free healthcare, actually. That's a bit of a myth, if you're very poor. It strikes me that in America, being middle class, I don't know, they don't use the word, if you have an average sort of wage in America, it seems to me, if anything goes wrong, you could be screwed royally.
Yes.
That's true, yeah, because the cost of things are going up because of the oil industry, and then the middle class is slowly shrinking. But what I really like is the positive news in America is that it says here in a Time article that it says, meet the low-key, low-cost grocery chain being called Walmart's worst nightmare. And what it is employees who own the chain, and they're the ones who share everything. And now, because of this, they're a chain that are going to grow, and it's strategic, it's remarkable, and I think it's amazing to me. I love this story because instead of being the victim, you're taking matters into your own hands.
I did a series of videos on Walmart, and I did a lot of research into it. And the only reason they can offer their low prices is because they cheat their employees.
Yes, they do.
One of the tricks that they do, and this is something that is done everywhere, is if, depending on what state you're in, you keep your employees working under a certain amount of hours, then they're part-time employees, they're not permanent, and you don't have to offer health care. And it is surprising how many Walmart employees are on get food stamps and other forms of welfare because they cannot make a living working at Walmart. And this is shameful. I will not shop at a Walmart. I won't go near one.
I won't.
Walmart has a corporate department, a corporate hotline that you can call as an employee to get assistance from the corporate, from people who work for their corporate office in getting public assistance.
Yeah.
Walmart will help their employees get public assistance.
Yeah. Did you see, was it McDonald's that put up that thing telling people how to live on less? And they were like really insulting things. They finally took it down because people said, you people are totally screwed up.
It was the equivalent of stop eating.
That was and one of them was kind of like, don't eat fast food. I mean, it's like
unless of course you're at work and then steal as much food as you can possibly get by with.
Oh my God.
And when that came out, a whole bunch of people said, well, we've got a solution, pay your people more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Now, when Obamacare came out, what was the big pizza chain? Papa John's. Papa John's came out and said, well, we're going to have to lay people off to be able to afford Obamacare. And, made a big deal about it. Some other people did too. And it turns out there was another pizza company that is not nationwide, unfortunately, that actually not only pays its people a living wage, but they also give them health care. Now, mind you, it's not the top of the, it's still kind of low wages because, you're working at a pizza place, but it's a better wage than Papa John's pays by far. It's not minimum wage, and they give their people health care. And yet their pizzas are about the same price.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard about that. So the other thing I heard with Asda, I keep saying Asda because that's what it is in the UK, which I don't shop at either. The other thing with Walmart is they do have a health insurance plan, but apparently the rates on it are really high, and most of the staff can't afford to put into it anyway.
Right. So it's just it's a horrible situation, but fortunately it's coming to light. It's being exposed more and more. Because one of the things is, the conservatives in Congress keep, making a big deal about welfare. Well, why are we paying for welfare? Well, we're paying for welfare because all these big companies that you seem to love aren't paying their employees a living wage. It's a little bit embarrassing.
Yes.
And the other thing is that places like Walmart, they will get subsidies from your local, whatever you call your local council in America. They'll get subsidies to actually build their place.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is they put all then they claim they're bringing jobs, but the thing is they put small businesses out of work and end up employing less people than all those small businesses were together.
Yeah.
Which is why they've been denied putting up a store in this county.
Excellent. Yeah, I did say a thing about. Yeah, I did say a thing about actually.
Our county has fought a lot of the big box stores. You can't fight everybody because you can't really say it's unfair, and you can even be sued if you say, I'm sorry, we're not going to allow any of these big stores. But it's been limited here. And certain big, this is Santa Cruz County. This is liberal central for California. I mean, we're just very, very liberal county. And Monterey County to the south, south of us is also quite liberal. And but no, we people and even the residents have come out and fought big box stores we are one place that still has a whole bunch of independent bookstores. This is a county where no, of course now they're dying anyway, but during the time when you had all the big bookstores like Bookworks and Barnes and Noble and all that, they all failed here.
Oh, good.
Because we wouldn't buy from them. One big company was Crown, I think it was at the time. They said that they were going to put Bookshop Santa Cruz out of business. Well, that was like the worst thing they could have said, because everybody started doing a little extra book shopping at Bookshop Santa Cruz, and nobody went to Crown.
Mm-hmm.
They folded.
Yeah.
I made an effort myself to do a little extra shopping at Bookshop Santa Cruz. Which is hard, not a thing for me to do. Well, if I were to win the lottery, the worst part about it would be that I'd probably spend $1 million on books.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
It's an addiction. Yeah. I have a basement. I could fill it with books.
All of my books are still in Texas. I have maybe 30 here, all said and done, and most of them acquired at like the Salvation Army and whatnot for 4 books for $1, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's some excellent books in charity shops.
Since I moved up here, but my mom, every single time she sends a package, she includes a handful, like a couple of books. She just grabs them at random off the shelves or out of the boxes of books.
I love used bookstores.
The lovely small town that we live in, and I really do love our location because it is so convenient to everything. But as a stereotype of relatively small Texas town, the only bookstores in town, we do have one half-price books, so used bookstore, but no Barnes & Noble, nothing else. The only other bookstores we have are Christian.
Wow.
So if you need a Bible, no problem.
Bibles are free. You can get a Bible.
It's so weird. I mean, I live in Burbank, California, where the Tonight Show is.
Burbank!
It's a media center, so you have used bookstores. You have secondhand bookstores here because it's so popular for people who want to research books or become writers, or there's a lot of artistic-minded people that like that sort of thing, or coffee shop via bookstores, things like that. But ironically, my brother-in-law is the manager for the Gospel Advocate bookstore, a Christian bookstore just outside of Dallas, Texas, in Mesquite, Texas. And it's funny because when he visits us or we get together to do things, you wouldn't think that he's, religious in any way. Yet he's been a manager of that bookstore for over 20 years. Strange how that works.
Yeah. By the way, I used to live on Olive Avenue, right down the street from NBC.
Yeah, I know where. Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
You know where
I
I'm
lived in
at.
Burbank too. Yeah, I know Burbank. Beautiful downtown Burbank, as it was called during.
We made fun of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
especially since NBC wasn't anywhere near the downtown.
And we made fun of Burbank when it used to be boring.
I'm going to make the general announcement that we can continue talking as long as y'all would like, but we are officially well into overtime now.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I saw that comment on YouTube that we were over time, but he wasn't going to say a word.
Well, you know what
always
happens
is,
when women
please.
start talking.
yeah.
By the
come
way,
on,
can
how
I
many-
ask you, ladies, are you all following Lenator
Yes.
and his mankini?
Yes. Yeah, the Mankini is going to be coming soon. Yes.
It's tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
You know
Yeah.
what I
my
love
goodness.
about Lenatar is he has, without any prompting whatsoever, had more women on his shows than anybody that I know.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's quite funny.
Well, he does invite us a lot.
Yeah.
Women in general, he's and if the topic goes to like abortion or something, then he's like, I need women.
And he actually
Yeah.
lets you talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Although he
not
wasn't too
like, let's
happy.
invite one woman in and gang up on them and tell them that they can't actually talk?
No, not at all.
Oh goodness, no.
Last time on his channel, I happened to catch one of his live feeds, and the topic had turned to abortion, and I posted in the YouTube comments, "Hey, if you need an extra vagina,"
I saw that.
and he went,
It was brilliant.
"Just a
I
minute.
saw
As soon
that
as somebody
too,
drops
yeah.
out, you're in."
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very good. I mean, I must admit, he's very, very good at that, making sure it's balanced. But I am desperate to see him and this mankini. And I have to admit that the video that he made us showing the challenge, I've been dropping links to it all over the internet for people to vote.
Please tell me that the Mankini issue is part of the charity thing.
It's not,
No.
funnily
Oh,
enough.
it so should be.
Oh,
It should be. We should talk him into plugging the charity thing.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think what
Yeah.
the guys should all do. You know how there's this now tradition that they all get their shirts off,
yes.
right? And some of them are hairy. They should have a wax off for charity.
I agree.
Oh, can't you see Mark doing that? Oh, dear.
Mm. I mean, it really has to be done. I think that would be brilliant. And basically one of those things that for every 5 minutes that they lasted without screaming, you donate $1.
Well, we
That
could
would
get
work.
women involved in that too.
Oh yeah.
It wouldn't have to just be the men. Women have some. I've got some scary legs.
Yeah.
But I can't
I've got
afford
small
wax at the moment. That's
head
annoying.
Well, I terrified the postman the first time I waxed my armpits because I was screaming when he was delivering letters and he thought somebody was killing me, and he started hammering on my door and shouting, "Are you all right in there?" And I had to go to the door with the bit of wax still in the mouth. So, yeah, I'm just waxing my armpits and I don't like it and I've stuck it on and I can't get it off. And he just went a sort of pale green colour.
Well, it was very kind that he was concerned about your
I
welfare.
know.
It was very nice.
I mean, I have to admit, my postman's had quite a few shocks and things like that. And so have my neighbours, like when I got stuck up a tree in the garden and I had to phone one of my neighbours to come and get me out the tree. And but I think the guys should have a charity wax off.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Alex
That
Boughton,
would be great.
Wayne,
Yeah.
because Wayne's hairy.
Oh my God, Wayne! Oh dear.
Mm.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure we can find plenty of hairy guys. Wax off for charity. Chest and the back.
Yeah.
Or,
It'd probably kill Wayne.
or upper thighs.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
What's that?
I'm not a fan of waxing.
Oh, I'm not a fan of waxing either, but I'm a fan of waxing guys. Sorry, it's just the sadist in me.
Oh, guys waxing for charity, I'm all for. That's not a problem. I'm just not going to do it myself.
Do you know, it was years and years ago when I was in my very early 20s, me and a friend of mine were sitting in her house and her husband had come in and they had a great big fight about something, I can't remember what it was. And he went away through to the bedroom and he fell asleep in the bed and he's just in his underpants. And me snuck in and she took his underpants off and we stuck the leg waxing strips onto his balls.
Oh,
And we just left-
no.
We just left him sleeping. And we knew he was awake when we heard the screaming.
Oh, God, no!
Oh, no.
It's a bit mean, isn't it? But it was funny. It was funny.
That is horrible.
He ended up having to get in a bath, a hot bath.
I was going to say a hot bath will help.
Yeah. We were suggesting things like, well, try some salt,
Oh, no.
Oh,
because that would make it worse. It was fun though. We were laughing.
Yeah.
I'm not a man hater. I'm really not a man hater, but there are I've got a warped sense of humour. I mean, it is pissy warped, and I quite like daft things like that. I don't think he ever forgave us. I don't even think they're still married, to be honest. But I don't think that's what causes the divorce.
you think?
It's a bit odd, isn't it? Oh, poor guy. Thomas was his name. Oh, poor
Oh,
John.
dear.
So
I
I'm
was
giving all you ladies ideas.
I was traumatized by getting my eyebrows waxed, so...
Oh, wow.
Oh boy. I'm traumatised just by trying to pluck mine, so I now go my friends down to hide them. It's just like 2 wee mobile hedgehogs I've got.
I'm actually quite fond of the threading method.
I've never tried threading. I've heard of it, but
It's not quite as traumatic as waxing, but it gets more done at once than tweezing.
Oh no.
waxing doesn't bother me, you see.
Yeah, I prefer to wax my eyebrows. I don't know. I did make a comment in the chat earlier
Yeah.
about how
Yeah,
I probably won't succeed in my plans to go with the natural childbirth because I had to throw down my tweezers today and say screw it because it hurt too much. I did. I don't know why. Some days it just hurts more than others.
Yeah.
It's usually boredom that
On
stops
colder
me.
days it hurts more.
Yeah,
It
colder
definitely
days.
hurts more
Yeah.
on a cold day.
I have really sensitive skin and I'm allergic to everything, so I'm just going to blame it on that.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
quite right too.
uh,
But no, the first time I did my eyebrows, I couldn't believe how painful it was.
I just
It
get
was-
bored when it's plucking.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know.
I don't even feel it. I'm just totally numb on my eyebrows.
It's
No.
another women's issue. Why do we do all this bullshit to ourselves?
Well, you see, I don't like having birds' nests under my arms.
Now that one I don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
don't-
really don't
But
like that.
is that because we're culturally thinking that way, or is it because we genuinely? I mean, it actually doesn't bother me. I find hairy legs less attractive than hairy armpits, but I do it more out of social pressure, to be honest.
No, I
Shaved my armpits all winter because the skin under my arms is really dark. It gets really dark, and I think it's something to do with shaving. So I decided I would try an experiment this winter, and not shave them. I've used a little buzzer thing to keep it under control because I can't stand long hair under my armpits. I just can't tolerate it anymore.
put in plaits.
Braid. You mean braid?
Sorry.
I can't tolerate long hair there, but I've come to prefer a bit of stubble to freshly shaved. It didn't work, by the way. The skin is still quite dark. Not
Do you
effective.
know what you need to do? Exfoliate.
I do.
Shave and then exfoliate.
I'll try a
Um,
different. I have I have a whole lot of brown sugar in the freezer. It's so old that I won't eat it, and so that's used for exfoliating things. So I'll give that a shot and see if that helps. But I thought perhaps if I just don't touch them with a razor, maybe it would get less dark. Because even
usually if it darkens up, it's because you're actually getting a build up of skin.
Yeah. Huh. I'll give that a try.
The other good way, if you do get a build-up of dead skin, and I know it's not really recommended, but washing up liquid.
Washing up liquid.
Just mix it with a little bit of water, put it on it, and leave it for ages.
Wow.
And then when you rinse it off, and you know your skin goes that squeaky clean way, start to rub with just your fingertips, and it all starts to come off in little rolls.
Wow.
And it shows you how filthy I get.
You're rolling around in the mud with your horses and cows.
Oh no. I have inadvertently quite a few times in my life made a mud angel.
Oh.
Well, if you don't get to know, you do what you have to do.
And the thing is, because of the suction, you can't get back up.
Oh no! Right. Oh no.
Yeah, it's like having a whaley stuck in the mud, except it's your entire body.
Oh wow.
The only way to get out is to roll.
Right.
Because you can't just sit up. You've got to roll so that you get your arms to put. And you end up, you're absolutely covered it head to toe. I've had to strip on my front doorstep.
Oh wow.
I've actually had to take my clothes off on the front doorstep before my husband would let me in the house. It was either that or he was going to hose me down in the garden, and I thought, no, the water's cold.
This is why I look forward to living in the middle of nowhere. You get muddy, you take off your clothes, nobody's around to see you.
Yeah, well, I'm quite secluded, so I'm okay. The local bird life saw me, and I scared quite a lot of the wildlife, but other than that, nobody else saw me.
Yeah, but we've got permafrost, so our well water is freezing.
Oh.
Like it's the temperature of what comes out of your refrigerator.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a refrigerator that pumps out water and that runs the tube through the ice machine and whatnot, that's the temperature of our tap water year-round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be hosed off either.
Like, I can't wash my hands in cold water. I can't. It burns.
Just talking about this, my nipples are starting to retract. That's the female equivalent of the male shrinkling and the wrinkling, by the way.
Yeah. Can I ask, how many of you here are mums?
Do stepmoms count?
I am.
I'm a mom.
Right. Did you breastfeed?
Yes, I breastfeed both my babies.
Right. This is something that drove me nuts when I was breastfeeding my son. When I went into the shower, my letdown would start. I'd actually feel the letdown reflex start.
Wow.
Interesting.
And the next thing I would know is I was hosing down the tiles.
Yeah. Wow.
Did that happen to you?
What happened to me was I was invited to see a friend of mine sing at a concert, my friend Texas Terry, who's a punk rock singer, and I was breastfeeding at the time. And she invited me up on stage to sing one of her really strong songs called Baby Bird, and it's real noisy. It's all punk. And I lifted up my blouse and unsnatched one of my little things on my breastfeeding bra and sprayed the audience with breast milk. And then I proceeded to roll around on the stage, baby bird, baby bird, baby bird, you know, rolling on the stage. And then after I was done, a guy bought me a drink and said, "You really educated me. I thought it only came out in one single stream like a hose, but it came out like a spray in many little holes." And I go, "Yeah."
Yeah.
It was glorious.
Wow.
I mean, I just couldn't believe it. The force of it.
Yeah. Just squirts right out. Shh.
Those muscles are quite strong.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, if you get engorged, it's so painful when the letdown starts.
Very painful. My daughter was taken for the weekend from my mother to visit Grandma, and her boyfriend, which she called Grandpa Gordon. And I got engorged. I was in so much pain, so they finally bring her home, and she was so starving for breast milk. She went drank one for 4 ounces, the other one good 4 ounces, and then there was this little dribble of little breast milk on her little face, and then her eyes leaning against my legs, her little eyes started going down, and then she just fell right to sleep because she got full of dopamine because she got what she wanted, so she just kind of fell asleep, and I was no longer in pain. I was so thankful. But I think it was my mom's way of trying to wean her off of me, because by that time she was about 14 months before I weaned her off, and she thought, well, she's getting a little too old, so let's take her for the weekend. And that's when I was in pain, and it didn't work.
But it's such I mean, I loved breastfeeding. I really did. I was very sad when I had to stop. And see, somebody's put it in the chat.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
I won't say it. But that, I mean, I was very, I was heartbroken when I had to stop.
Well, it's easier for the baby because they tend to relax better, they tend to behave better. I remember going on a flight with my baby, and why is your baby so well behaved? And I'd have this blanket over my shoulder because I had a special way of breastfeeding where no one could tell. It was very discreet. So people noticed that, people sitting next to me, that's why you were breastfeeding, she's so quiet. Well, yeah. Or if I was at a restaurant, I had a certain way where no one could tell. And no one ever harassed me or said, hey, there's nudity in public, because I was just so discreet about it. No one could know.
Yep, just pull up your shirt and stuff them right under there.
It could be at a park, it could be at a restaurant, anywhere.
Oh, I got harassed by an old guy when I was breastfeeding my son. I was stuck in the middle of a shopping centre, and all the mother and baby rooms were full, and I had no option but to feed. And my son was about 6 or 7 weeks old. Weeks, not months, weeks. And he came up and said, that baby is far too old to be breastfeeding. You're busting.
What?
That is absurd.
I haven't said that. I mean, I haven't said that. When my son was 13 days old, most people thought he was 3 months. But I still thought, and I thought, normally I would have told him where to go. But when you're actually in the process of breastfeeding your baby, you're not going to get into confrontation because you're not going to risk your child.
But it's like crazy that we can have breasts sexually on display everywhere, and that's on the whole, for the majority of people, socially acceptable. But breastfeeding is like, oh God, how could you get it stopped?
Like, I'm showing more cleavage right now than the average woman while breastfeeding in a public place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but women are told to stop or to leave the restaurant, or you can't do that here, or things like that. It's just, businesses won't let. It's ridiculous. Women are harassed all the time for breastfeeding.
Yeah. I mean, when I went back to work, I had to express, and my boss made it difficult.
I was really good at doing that where people couldn't tell.
Oh, can I ask a question to those of you who have, had children and breastfed? Prior to actually doing it, did the idea of, breastfeeding skeeve you out? Like, was it one of those? Because I am so, frightened. I don't know. It makes me go, ew. The idea of putting my breast into a child's mouth just freaks me out for some reason.
Because of the idea of it, it's in your head. But once the infant latches on and then there's that reflex that occurs, it all washes away. You just don't think about it.
Because I'm hoping it will go away, because I think it's an important bonding thing to actually put them on the tit.
It's just like any bodily function. All the preconceived ideas just wash away and go, oh, this is no big deal. That's how it works.
And plus, you don't have to go to all the hassle of sterilising bottles.
Yeah.
I've done them to the right temperature.
I've done the bottle sterilization and mixing the formula and making sure it's warm enough, and just popping out a boob would be so much easier.
Yes.
And the thing is, you can do it in your sleep pretty much.
Yes. That's true, actually. I mean, I would prop Matthew up with a pillow, and I would go back to sleep while he fed. And when one side was emptied, my husband would poke me to wake me up in the middle of the night, and I'd just change him to the other side.
No, Vince and I have had conversations about that. Like, if he plans that if I don't wake up, he's just going to grab the baby and shove it up against a boob.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, that actually it does work quite well. You can doze off.
Yeah, I'd be lying down. The baby is feeding, and I start dozing off, and the baby dozes off and is finished right next to me, and without any worry about tilting a bottle up or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds so beautiful.
I had the worst experience when I had my baby. She was 2.5 months premature.
Ooh.
She was also in the hospital for 2.5 months. And even though this was back in the day, this was a long time ago, I had to use. They wanted to make sure that she had breast milk, so because it would be better for her.
Yeah.
So I had to use this machine, and like. Back then, these machines, breast pumps, were like making these. You would, you put your breast into it, and it was literally, it had its own stand. It was ginormous, and it was, it looked like something. It just looked like some kind of torture thing.
Yeah.
It was making all these noises like. Whoosh,
yeah.
The new pumps are great.
It was horrible. So I had this breast milk. I'm trying to get it out with this machine, and it just didn't work. Like there was like after a while, I just stopped producing milk.
You do stop. Yeah, you do stop. If there's no natural stimulation for your hormones to release it, it'll stop.
Yeah, they should have put your baby to breast as well.
It's kind of like when a woman goes into labor and she's getting ready and it's 5 minutes apart, then it's 2 minutes apart. She shows up at the hospital, she's stressed out, and the labor stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no way she was in the intensive care ICU for that entire period.
Well, that's where I work, and we get them to breast as soon as they're able to. They can even be on a CPAP device, and we still get them put to breast because you have to have that physical contact for your hormones to start kicking in.
Yeah, by the time that happened, this was back. I'm in my 50s now, so I mean this was back when I was really young. I would be like 1980, no, 1979 or so. So.
Yeah, that was just like when the early beginnings of neonatal care.
Yeah. I was educated. I knew that it was important to touch her. I knew that it was important to, have contact with her as soon as possible. But because, like in high school that year that I had graduated, right before I had my baby, there was the big. We had a little campaign in one of my classes about Nestle and Africa. I can't remember where in Africa, but they were selling formula. They were selling formula to, basically women in third world countries, and it was, it was an outrage. So we
don't get me started on that subject.
Well, yeah. When I went home from both, I went to 2 different hospitals. I had my babies in 2 separate hospitals. Depending on where I lived, one in Santa Monica and one in the the same thing. They sent me home with samples of formula because they're encouraging to sell formula rather than breastfeed because of the money makers, the people who want to make money off of selling formula.
Oh, yeah.
What Nestle did when they were selling this formula in third world Asian countries is they refused to put English explanations of how to use it properly because they said, well, everyone can speak English. And also, I mean, the Kellogg's are just about, they do it's not false advertising, but it's kind of like these third world mothers see healthy first world or westernized babies really healthy, and they think they drink this formula, it must be good for them. But they don't realize that they don't realize they have to boil the water first and stuff like that because they haven't been taught, and the what's the word I'm looking for? Not explanation. The instructions. They refuse to put it in English. They refuse to put it in anything other than English, or they wouldn't put it in the Indian languages of the countries. And many more babies died of dysentery than usual.
Yeah, it's quite
just
shocking.
Don't get me
Absolutely.
started on Nestle. I don't buy any of their products.
Oh, I love how they're buying up all the wells.
And I also
and
I see in the
selling.
comment section talking about vaginal births. C-sections, most of them are unnecessary. Most of them are just to create an extra $1,500 for an extra night stay because of a C-section. Most of them are unnecessary. I read the studies. That's how I know. I looked at all the studies on WebMD and all the different things. Plus, I read a book about 4 inches thick called The Politics of Obstetrics before I had my first kids to understand that. And because I read that book, both times they said, well, because you're not fully dilated, we're going to do a C-section on you. They did this to both of my labors. And I said, over my dead body. And that's when they turned down this machine that administers in your IV a hormone called Pitocin to make you contract faster. Well, the nurse both times had to turn it down and stop pumping me full of it, and knew they had to wait longer so that I could have vaginal births. So I had vaginal births with both of them because I told them no.
Yeah.
I knew what my
Well,
rights were.
insurance companies aren't reimbursing for unnecessary C-sections anymore, so you have to have a pretty good documentation on why you're doing it.
I'm going to pitch in my 2 cents worth, even though I have not had kids. However, a good friend of mine, you were just talking about the insurance companies, but a close friend of mine from college ended up deciding on a home birth, not for any spiritual reasons, not for any whatever reasons, but because her insurance absolutely would not cover a hospital birth unless she scheduled the pregnancy. She had to either be induced or have a C-section.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Oh my
Her
God.
insurance would not cover it.
Wow, come to this now. This is so crazy.
And this woman,
That sort of thing happens in the UK as well to some degrees, in that
Yeah.
to help with their hospital scheduling, they will, or anyway, never mind. They often induce just because it's convenient for them, not because there's no medical reason.
My sister induced with all her kids, but it was because she was late. Like all of her children were born late, or later than expected after her due date, and it had been a couple of weeks, and she's like, "I'm going to explode. Can we please schedule an induction?"
My understanding is that it's never really exactly 9 months. Some people genetically will give birth 2 weeks earlier, and some people will genetically give birth 2 weeks late. It's just a normal thing. It's a variability. There's just a mean average of 9 months. So when they say you're late, you're not really late. It's according to when your hormones kick in and tell you when the baby's fully baked. It'll tell you, and then you start to go into labor natural.
well, and that was,
I went a month over, and I had ruptured membranes, and I had meconium staining, and they still wouldn't even admit me to a hospital.
Oh, yeah, well, you've had meconium staining. That's a direct reason to admit you.
Yeah.
That means
What
the
is
baby's
meconium
trouble.
I'm
staining?
not familiar with that one. Yeah.
It's the baby's bowels have opened while it's still in the uterus.
Yeah, it's usually due to
It's a sign of, it's a
I'm
sign
not
of fetal distress. My membranes had ruptured on the Sunday morning at 3 a.m. and I was only admitted on the Monday night at 8 p.m.
Oh, that's terrible, Fiona.
Surely that's
And
gonna,
that was-
it's not
I'd been
going to give you
phoning
some
them all
sort of
day.
poisoning.
The only reason they would admit me was because I turned up on the door and refused point blank to leave.
wow.
Ah.
Yeah,
And
you have
even
to know
then,
your
I mean,
rights.
I had from rupture of membranes to my son being born was 56 hours.
I'm wondering if, since now they're like, there's this, maybe it's a trend, I don't know, of like scheduling deliveries. I wonder if maybe they're getting really cavalier about the episiotomy too. Like automatically, let's just make.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
That happened.
At least not out here.
My mother-in-law gave birth in 1986 in an army hospital. She was in the army, and her choice was air conditioning or lights. They were moving hospitals, basically, what was going on post at the time, and she had zero choice about an episiotomy. That was the rule at the time. Was a woman comes in to give birth, immediately she gets an episiotomy.
That's why I wish more women would have access to midwives, because they're going to be working with you to try to reduce that the
Yeah.
entire time.
We have lots of female doctors on staff, so
A
things
friend
are a
of,
little bit different.
Yeah,
a friend
my,
of mine had a very bad tear, and the doctor was stitching her up, and he turned to the husband and he said, "How tight do you want me to sew her?"
Oh my goodness.
And the worst of it was,
Fiona, come on.
my friend was a midwife, and she hooked him.
Good for her.
That's
Good.
terrible.
Yeah. And I mean,
when I
that
was
was in,
researching my
that was
last
in the 80s.
Yeah, gee.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And she said the worst of it was, when he'd done the episiotomy, he tried to do it with, because she'd got quite a bad tear, he wanted to extend it. But he wasn't going to anaesthetise her at all. No local anaesthetic. And she insisted. But he was talking to her husband all the time and not her.
Cripes.
But that is what he actually said to her husband. How tight do you want me to stitch her?
Hopefully,
And I am
that's
so
not joking.
glad that I didn't give birth in the 1980s. The attitudes really were bad.
Well, once again, I have not given birth. I most likely will not ever give birth. However, I do know my own birth story. And my mom, I was born by C-section in 1980. And it was because I wouldn't drop.
Uh-huh.
I know there's things that can be done about that. And it might have even been, I was in no distress. It could have just taken longer. But she was young.
Uh-huh.
There was no education about it. And she did what the doctors told her to do. And the doctors told her that she needed a C-section. I mean, if she really had any option, I don't think she would have.
Which way does her
Things
scar
have changed
go?
a lot.
Which kind of scar did she get? How was she cut, in other words?
I'm trying to remember.
There's classical and then there's low transverse.
It was not low.
I was very lucky. I had the C-section that was like it's under the bikini line.
Yeah. That's the
No,
one.
she had the full-on scar.
That's
Classical.
Yeah.
My mother was lucky. She had an advanced doctor that was ahead of his time, so she had all three of hers naturally. He
I was
didn't believe in
begging for the
drugs.
C-section. I was absolutely begging for the C-section because I knew my son was going nowhere.
Yeah.
Because I know I've got a narrow, misshaped pelvis, but they just wouldn't listen to me. So I was begging for it.
Now, I do have another friend that we don't really talk much because she's diehard anti-vax, and all that comes with that. So we just don't have much in common anymore. That and her children scare me. But I will give her some credit. She was told the first time around that she absolutely could not have children, which caused major problems in her first marriage. They got divorced. She met up with an absolutely wonderful man. They got pregnant. She miscarried. And she has her first child after that was a C-section. But after that, she has had very healthy, very normal vaginal births. And at least the third one, I know, was a home birth. The second one may have been as well. But she's very into all of that as well. I would have been a little scared to have a home birth with her history.
Yeah, she's had that.
You know, with the miscarriage and the VBAC, and yeah, I would have had problems with that. But they've been very healthy, no problems, so she's done well. And I'm glad that she's learned enough that to not necessarily believe what the doctors tell her.
Yeah.
especially with where she lives.
I can't remember how long ago it was. It might have been 20 years ago, it might have been less. I do vaguely remember seeing on the news, and they were referring to doctors or not gynecologists, GYBNs in America, where they quite often do C-section, just in case there might be a complication with the vaginal birth and the patient sues. But that was many years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was happening quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, like I said, insurance companies will not reimburse you for a convenient C-section.
As I say, this was, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it might have been 20 years or more. I can't remember. I do remember seeing that on the news and thinking.
I do remember that, Dee. Yeah, there was such a panic over being sued that it was the least little chance of a complication. They did a C-section.
I mean, I think I'd rather have a C-section than an episiotomy. Maybe I'm ignorant, and it's just a nothing, but I wouldn't want to be cut down there. And it seems to be that there's a risk of things going wrong. Wrong.
I'll be honest, I just haven't got the nerve to give birth, full stop. I'm not doing it. I haven't done it. I'm never doing it. I can't do it now because I'm going through the menopause anyway. And
I would have given birth full stop without having, the spinal injection to numb you. But the problem is that I had back labor with both my babies, and back labor makes you feel like you're going to pop your freaking kidneys out, or your spine is going to snap. It's so painful. And the problem is in hospitals, they don't let you stand up, and the only relief I had was standing up. So they make you lay in the bed to fight gravity. So if you are one of those women that have back labor, they make it so you have to have the pain gone. They make you suffer.
A lot of hospitals are.
Dare I even ask what back labor is, as opposed to?
It's when the baby.
It's just where you feel it, and you're.
Yeah, it's when the baby's back is to the mother's back. So
there's a nerve hitting that's so painful it's intolerable, and you can't just breathe and do all the Lamaze classes like you were taught where you're going.
That's where you have a labor bar, though, where they get you up off of your back.
No, you're like this, and you're just literally just shaking in pain because of the back labor. So, and the only relief you have is if you get off the gurney and you're standing up. It's crazy.
Wow. I will give them some credit. A lot of hospitals are going to allowing women to stand up and walk and move around.
Oh, absolutely, and there's labor bars where you can lean up over it.
That's how slow they are at catching up on women's anatomy.
Yeah.
How slow.
Women have been squatting down in a field to give birth.
I don't know if it's true. I think there's some story that some English king wanted to actually see his wife giving birth, and that's why she lay down. And we've carried on doing that ever since. And it's like, but
that's ridiculous.
It goes against gravity. It goes against.
My problem was I couldn't have stood up. I couldn't have stood up if I wanted because I had symphysis pubis dysfunction.
Oh.
From about, I think, the 5.5 month stage.
Wow.
So I was in a really bad way, just walking or getting into a car. I had a great big harness to hold my pelvis together.
Yeah,
that I had to wear.
Your case is serious. I mean, that requires medical intervention. And one of the things I had was my second pregnancy, my baby was not upside down, and they had to physically put pressure on my stomach to turn her upside down. I had a doctor. That's what I like about technology, because I wouldn't have been able to have a vaginal birth if he didn't do this, but they put this big bar on my stomach, an ultrasound with all that greasy stuff. And the nurse was showing him on a screen what the baby looked like, and then he threw his tie back behind his shoulder, leaned over me with his gloves on to twist her body all the way around. And right when she hit that midpoint where he's twisting her in that midpoint, I was like in so much pain, and so I know she must have been, and I'm all, oh God, and then finally I breathe out, and she goes, shoom, and then it just twisted upside down. When she was born, you could see a bruise on her eye, like a bloody eye, and a bruise on her face because it hurt her. But the ultrasound image of her right after they twisted her, and he printed out the picture, she was crying in my womb. Her face like this, crying. That blows my mind.
But that right there is another example of how slow modern medicine has been to catch up, because midwives have been doing that for thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I've read is that the reason women were put on their backs was because it was more convenient for the male doctors.
Yeah, that figures.
When the men took over even birth and midwives were demonized, it was simply more convenient for the doctors.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the gynecologist
Thank goodness
I went
it's
to in
changed.
Austin. The gynecologist I went to in Austin actually recommended for her OB patients to have both a midwife and a doula. And she had a great big list on her website of folks that she's worked with before and is fond of. And I researched, just doing my homework, picking a gynecologist, that kind of thing, went, this lady's awesome.
Exactly.
Wow.
And
What's
she was
a doula?
great.
There's a lot of great OBs out there.
A doula, I think, helps with the emotional end and continues to help after the baby is born.
Like a coach.
Yeah, she's like your emotional person.
They can fill in and do a lot that a midwife does, depending on their training.
Yeah.
But yes, they do continue on. They do a lot of the lactation counseling.
Oh, like aftercare.
And
Postnatal
I've got some friends who do that as well.
I always thought that the doula was the one who supports the household, cooking the food, during everything to support the new parents.
Some do that as well.
So that the bonding would definitely be taking place. Everything to support the proper bonding of the family, of the infant.
Listen, guys, I'll need to go now. So I will leave you to continue your discussions, terrifying all the men out there.
Well, on that note,
and women,
I gotta go too.
Both terrifies me too.
Yeah,
And
this might be a
Lenator,
good point to go ahead and shut down.
Lenator will be green by now, the same colour as the Mankini.
Really?
Yeah, he doesn't like discussions like this, he gets queasy. But anyway,
So do I.
have fun, ladies, and it's been a brilliant conversation. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and I hope we can do this on a. I hope we can do this on a regular basis.
Yeah, we do.
And
for it.
Right, well,
get
night.
more people. Good night, Fiona.
Good night, Fiona.
See you.
And I'm going to go ahead and ask Exile to do another plug for the charity.
Well, I know where I'm going after this. I'll be going over to find out who's on for the Madness, Mayhem, and Charity event that we have every year. DevShell started it and continues it every year. And our community is very proud to be raising money for HIV/AIDS research, and everybody should either go on over there and see who's on, check out the link in the description so you can find out where it is. It's on Bond TV, and I hope to see everybody there in the comments and supporting the people who are hosting shows for the event. So I'll see you over there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you guys have a link?
Okay, well,
that
I
you
gotta
can
go.
post?
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for coming.
There we go. Hey, there we go.
Okay.
Oh, that's fun.
And also, I, on my behalf, have to thank everybody that participated, both those that are present and those that are not. And it sounds like you all had a great hangout, and maybe we can schedule this again. Just for future reference, next time that one of these is ran, we may see about doing it on somebody else's channel, and I can just simulcast it to my own.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So we will leave that as an option, and I'm thinking maybe the 22nd of next month, but we'll see. I'll have to figure out stuff with the scheduling. And y'all have a great night, and to those that watch, thanks for joining us, and have a good night.
Thank you.